A man standing with his back facing him on the edge of the darkness. Tom yelled out to the man, "Hey, you! What are you doing? Come over here right now." The man turned round and gave him a blood-curdling smile. Then he ran into the woods. Without even thinking, Tom chased after him. The smiling man was leaping over branches and ducking under fallen trees like a pro. It was almost inhuman. He was on another level. Eventually, he stopped in a clearing in the forest. He smiled and then kept running. Finally, they reached a clearing in the woods. Tom was exhausted and only just managed to even look up. The man had stopped. He turned around, smiled, and then began to walk slowly back into the woods again. Tom chased, but the man was gone. It was like he had just vanished into thin air. To this day, he swears this wasn't a normal criminal. He had an experience with a sinister paranormal being. Next to number 9 now, we have the kidnapping. This one comes from Dr. Jim Danger, who said that when he was 18, he and his friends took a trip to the Apalachicola forest in Florida. They drove deep into the woods so they wouldn't be disturbed by any park rangers. On the very first night, they decided to do some exploring. Almost immediately on their walk, they started seeing signs that someone had been there before them. Big bags of trash were strewn everywhere. They came across a campsite with a van. There were clothes strung up on a line, coolers around the area, and a big golden retriever. They tried to back out, but then an old man stepped out and greeted them. He was friendly and chatted to them for 10 minutes about where they were from before they went on their way. Something didn't seem quite right with him. 2 months after the trip, a friend called him and told him to turn on the news. It showed an old guy with a van and a golden retriever. His name was Gary Michael Hilton, and he had just been convicted of at least 4 murders. He had kidnapped and murdered a girl in Georgia, an older couple in North Carolina, and a girl in the very same park they had been in not long after they left. They called the police and ended up actually helping them with the investigation that sent the murderer to prison. At number 8 now, we have the Mountain Man. This one comes from Reddit user CMurder4000. He's a geologist who said that he did his graduate fieldwork in Nevada. He was way out in the middle of nowhere when he saw a hand-built shack in the distance. A mountain man stepped out and looked at him. He panicked and went away. A while later, he was in a nearby area when he walked up to what looked like some kind of farm. When he got closer, he could smell the strong scent of marijuana. It was an outdoor weed farm. As he turned to get out of there, he was confronted by a man with a gun. The man offered him $10,000 to not report what he had seen and let him go. He agreed, but he never collected the $10,000 or even reported it, saying he was too scared to do either. Next up at number 7 now, we have the Screaming Woods. This forest lies just outside of Pluckley, said to be the most haunted village in Britain. The woods get their name because of the blood-curdling screams locals hear from the forest late at night. They say it's haunted by a highwayman who was captured by the villagers hundreds of years ago. They dragged the criminal into the woods, pinned him to a tree, and killed him with a sword. He screamed as he fell to his death. Visitors come from all over to experience the paranormal goings on there. I found a story from a recent visitor that went like this. I was in Pluckley and a group of friends and I decided to go to Deering Woods. When we got there was birds singing and the atmosphere seemed quite happy. We got out the car and my friend noticed that the birds had stopped singing as we went into the woods. You could have heard a pin drop as we walked in up to halfway towards the crossroads, and us girls decided to come out, so we went into the car and the boys went back in. About 20 minutes later, the boys came running out. They got in the car, started it, and turned it head on to the woods, where my friend's brand new car had stalled. We saw this black mist coming towards us, as if it was walking down the path. There was definitely something there. We then went down to the Black Horse pub where we discussed the day's ghost hunt, and the boys said it was only when they started getting close to the crossroads that it appeared, so they ran out. We have talked to a few of the local people who have said that early in the morning you can hear screaming coming from the woods. Next up at number 6 now, we have The Thing. This one comes from Surly Vet. He said his friend was deer hunting once in the mountains of Virginia back in the 1990s. One winter morning he set out with his gun to a tree stand. It was still very dark when he arrived, and so he climbed up and waited until dawn. While he was waiting, he decided to reverse the batteries in his flashlight. He had an issue with the switch and thought this might fix it. Suddenly though, he was disturbed by a chill running down his spine. Out of nowhere, he began to feel a crippling fear and a feeling of being watched. He was thinking about climbing down from the tree stand and walking back to his truck when he heard a blood-curdling scream at the base of his tree, along with scratches and rustling in the bushes. He fumbled for his flashlight and cursed himself for messing around with the batteries then. He said the thing that was down there was able to elicit a fear in him like nothing he'd ever experienced. Before that, he'd always felt very calm with a gun and confident that he could handle any animal out there. This time though, he was filled with horror and dread. The thing screamed, shrieked and scratched for 15 minutes and then total silence. Not once did he see anything. When he came down a few hours later, he packed up and left the area. He has never been hunting again. Moving on to number 5 now, we have the rope. This one was first told by Rodat on Reddit. He wrote a brilliant first-hand account which I'll read for you now. Me and my friends thought it would be a great idea to share a few drinks on the side of a dark and unfrequented mountain road at 2 in the morning when everyone should be asleep and no one would bother our drunken boisterousness. Where I grew up, it's very common to go around on motorcycles, not the speedy racing types, but the more commercial 150cc variety. It's also very common to ride these motorcycles without helmets, and the weather usually calls for just a light windbreaker, even on very dark nights on lonely roads such as the one we were on. After distancing ourselves sufficiently from civilization as it was, we parked by the side of the road, under a tree. I should mention there was a dim glow emanated by the moon, and our eyes quickly adjusted to the darkness enough to see each other. Another thing worth mentioning is that this road led to an army encampment several kilometers away, so the only sort of people that would potentially drive by us were tough army folk. It was now 10 minutes past, and we were having a good time when we see headlights creeping up towards us. We ignore them because we were all well sheltered from the pavement, sitting under a large tree whose branches grew wide and provided a good deal of cover. The headlights belonged to a Jeep that zoomed past us and suddenly came to a halt. They see us. This was terrifying because here we are, drunk as college students usually are, on bikes without helmets at 3 a.m. on a winding mountain road. But our fear was slightly alleviated as the car drove away. Still, why stop at all? They joked and said that the guy probably saw there was 4 of us and 1 of them. Ha ha ha, loser. Some more time passes. A second pair of headlights belonging to another car drives past us, stops, and then leaves. At this point, we were getting more and more sober and more worried, so we decide to call it a night and head home. We get on our bikes and start riding back, and one of us realizes he's left his backpack,
man. Bring everybody else with you,
too. We turn around to cover those 3 to 4 kilometers to where we were. As we approach the tree, the backpack owner dismounts while we turn the bikes around. One of our headlights sweeps an intensely bright beam across the branches of the tree. As it points to the branches just above where we were sitting, in a flash we witness, illuminated in stark contrast to the background darkness, a human body hanging by a rope. It had been there the whole time. Now we know why the cars were stopping.
They put it in their dancing.
Next up, number 4 now, we have Sally in the Wood. Just outside of Bath in the UK, you will find some woods that many locals dare not go near. It's a patch of woodland known simply as Sally in the Wood. Supposedly, it's haunted by the ghost of a murdered girl. They say that birds in the woods there cannot sing. Drivers have reported hearing a child scream from the darkness, and some swear they see the ghost of a young girl running out into the road. Legend says that Sally, the murdered girl, haunts the woods at night. She causes cars to crash on the unlit stretch of road where she comes out from behind the trees. They say she was a gypsy girl, supposedly in prison.
Want to know how long it takes me to send money directly to bank accounts around the world using Western Union? Just like that. Actually, it's more like that. But I thought you were going to skip this part of the ad. It's fast. It's like really fast.
I want to quickly share what for me has been a hugely positive habit, and that's speaking to a therapist using BetterHelp. I've spoken in the past pretty openly about how I really struggled in my second year of university, putting tons of pressure on myself to study all the time, comparing myself to others, and making myself so anxious that I developed IBS. At that time, speaking to a therapist massively helped me, and now I've begun going to therapy regularly using BetterHelp as a preventative tool to look after my mental health. Talking to a therapist about any anxieties I have helps me to de-stress when I'm feeling overwhelmed. BetterHelp assesses your needs and can match you with your own therapist from their network in as little as 48 hours. There you have a very broad range of expertise within their therapist network, with over 30,000 licensed therapists currently on the platform. You can use the time with your therapist as it suits you, scheduling weekly sessions as you want, and you can also message your therapist at any time. It's affordable and convenient, so you can visit betterhelp.com to join over 2 million people taking charge of their mental health with the help of a therapist.
In the 18th century, she was locked up in a tower without food and water, left to die inside the woods. Others say she was a local witch who lived to be 100 years old and now continues to torment others in death. Locals say that she may be dead, but her chilling stories live on. Coming in at number 3 now, we have the cougar. This one comes from Reddit user Smokey the Marshmallow. He said the scariest experience he had as a park ranger in Washington State was being stalked by a cougar for a day and a half. One day she was hiking up an old trail when she had the creepy feeling of being watched. That night she camped at a shelter made of 3 walls and a roof. One side was completely open. At one point, she even put her emergency foil tarp around her sleeping bag so that she could hear anything stepping around her. The next day, she found fresh cougar feces and scratches on trees on the trail that she had just hiked on. About a mile past the shelter, she found a half-eaten deer in a brush off the trail. That's when she knew that a cougar was nearby and that it was stalking her. The last 2 hours of hiking through the dense forest were the most hair-raising of any hike she had been on. Next up at number 2 now, we have The Visitor. Some of you guys may have heard me talk about this story in another video, but it's too good to leave off the list. It comes from Senior Puffy Pants. I still remember that name. He said he was once leading a group of school kids up Mount Sterling in North Carolina. They were camping at the top of the mountain on a beautiful night with a full moon. The kids and the other guide went to bed in their tents. He chose to sleep in a hammock outside. He lay there reading his book until 10:30 p.m. when he decided to go to sleep. The moon was so bright that it lit up the trail they had just climbed up on. As he was drifting off to sleep, he saw something move on the trail. As he looked closer, he noticed it was a person. They were in the middle of nowhere, and there was someone hiking up the trail towards them with no headlamp on or any gear. He froze as the person moved closer towards the camp. They arrived at the top of the mountain and then stopped in their tracks. It was a man. He sat there in a way that looked like he wasn't trying to sleep. He was just watching them. The guide was terrified. He stared back at the man. They stared at each other. This went on for hours and hours. Then, at 3:30 in the morning, the man stood up. He took a moment to survey the camp, a few minutes longer, and then went back down the trail they had all come up on. To this day, he has no idea who the man was, what he wanted, and why exactly he was staring at them. And finally, number 1 now, we have the Goblin. This one comes from Reddit user Justin F100,000. He said this one happened about 8 years ago. He was working as a camp counselor for Camp Tommy in New York State. He was staying in some cabins at the top of the mountain, each one separated by about half a mile. One night, at about 1 a.m., he was sneaking off to meet his girlfriend in another cabin. He decided to cut through the forest to speed up the journey. Suddenly, he heard a rustling in the woods, and he stopped to investigate it. There are big animals that live in those woods, so he was expecting to see something like that. A bear, perhaps. All of a sudden, though, this 3-foot-tall humanoid thing jumped out of the bushes and just looked at him. It was too dark to make out any real features, but it definitely had 2 feet, 2 arms, and basically looked just like a person, but tiny. He was curious and walked towards it. He spooked the thing and it bolted back out into the woods. It ran stiffly but was very, very quick. To this day, he has no idea what the creature was, although everyone seems to have their own theories.
Starting us off with number 10 is the skunk ape. Late at night, a driver stopped to pee in an undeveloped area. His sister in the car claimed someone's coming as he heard branches snapping in the woods next to them. He looked up to see a dark-colored 7 to 8 foot animal running towards him. As he got into the car and sped away, they saw the giant beast watching them leave. That was the first ever account of someone seeing the skunk ape back in 1989. Known to be Florida's own version of the Sasquatch, and countless people have sent in descriptions and reports of seeing the beast, and they all match up. The thing is bipedal but walks with a bit of a hunch, and as you might have guessed, it's very much a carnivore. The worst bit about this one is that a photo was sent in to the Sarasota sheriff in 2000 of the beast, and and it looks like something out of your worst nightmares. Apparently, the anonymous person was leaving treats out for it to make it come back. Like, mate, it's a skunk ape, not a cute little fox or something to leave treats out for. Cut that out. Stop leaving treats. Jeez. Coming in at number 9 is the Maryland Goat Man. The title of this article was "Goats Shouldn't Walk on Two Legs," and I 100% agree with that. They shouldn't. Yet somehow one is. Legend has it the Maryland Goat Man is a half man, half goat creature who roams the forest of Beltsville with an axe. And there's two versions of his origin story. The first is that a man who kept goats went completely mad after a bunch of teenagers killed his flock. The incident made him bloodthirsty for revenge. But why would a bunch of teenagers kill goats? Like, what would they even get out of that? Is that what the teens are doing these days? Shocking. Shocking. Now, the second story is that a scientist was conducting experiments on a goat with human DNA and things went horribly wrong, thus turning the goat into a half man, half goat beast. The legend gained a lot of publicity in the 50s, 60s, and 70s when a huge German shepherd was found cleanly decapitated in the forest. People have reported seeing him for decades now, and I honestly believe them. But also, if it was created way back when, shouldn't it be dead by now? Like, what's the lifespan of a goat, you guys? Surely it's time has come, surely. At number 8 we have the Demon of Dartmoor. Now legend has it, and it's not even legend, eyewitness reports say that the demon is a massive four-legged hairy beast with glowing eyes. It's said to have a thick shaggy coat, round ears, and the limbs of King Kong. Exaggeration there, a little bit, but they are strong enough to tear straight through human flesh, so how much was I really exaggerating? Really? Over the years, people have thought it was a large wild cat or dog. Some think it's a bear or Wolverine. I didn't even know Wolverine was real. A falconer who stood 200 meters away from the demon said size-wise it's like a miniature pony and it moved like a feline but reminded him of a bear. Can that description give off any more mixed signals? Seriously. The founder of the National Research Network, Big Cats, even said this thing is definitely not a wild cat or a dog. He went on to say he saw a collie-sized cat in the area 10 years prior, but the Demon of Dartmoor is a lot bigger than that, so that's just great. The picture I saw of it makes it look like a mix of a gorilla, a boar, and my ex. Filling our number 7 slot is the Faceless. I feel like I just named a new species of people, like the Faceless. But anyway, this story comes from a member of the Philippine Marine Corps, and he said he went out on patrol after his unit received information about an enemy sighting. After 3 days of camping around bushes in the jungle and forests nearby, they found a figure in the distance. They started approaching the figure slowly, but the closer they got, the more the horror really set in. The person wasn't walking, they seemed to be floating, and that wasn't even the worst part. It was dressed like a normal living person, but it had no face. The soldier went on to say it was like the face of the person had been erased. Its skin was so pale it was almost translucent, like all its blood had been drained. It had bullet wounds all throughout its chest, and at one point it looked straight into the soldier's rifle scope, and the soldier claimed he had never been that scared in his life. Keep in mind this man is on the battlefield, so you can well imagine the fear. Now I'm assuming the soldier saw the ghost or apparition of a dead soldier who had probably bled out from their bullet wounds, but the whole erased face thing is a complete mystery to me. Do you guys have any ideas? Let me know below. Now at number 6 is question mark. Honestly, I'm about to tell you the experience of a hunter in a forest who wasn't even sure what he saw, so how am I even meant to label this one? The man was in the deepest parts of the woods near a lake, and he'd hunted many times before, but this time things just felt off. For some odd reason, he felt like he was being watched, but he tried to just brush it off regardless. He was sat in a tree stand when he heard the howl of a huge creature making its way across the thicket. He initially thought it was just a group of wild hogs, but he realized all the howling was coming from one thing. The creature was moving slowly, it was remaining out of sight, and it was moving through the lake. Mind you, the lake was about waist high on the hunter, so you can imagine just how large this creature was. It was advancing slowly and silently through the water and then dashed into the thicket. The hunter didn't actually manage to see the creature, but when he came back a few days later to get his bag, he found deep claw marks on the tree he'd been using, and his bag was gone. And that's all he wrote. Coming in at number 5 is The Witch. Now personally, I think this one is 100% fake. It seems like special effects to me, but you guys can decide for yourselves. Now this video was uploaded by YouTuber True Chooser back in 2010, and it shows a dirt road with woodland on each side of it. In the middle of the road up ahead is this dark grey creature sitting on the ground. Like the body looks clearly human, except its fingers are creepily long and thin, and as the cameraman gets closer, the thing turns around and you can see it's a female with long hair and dark facial features. And then the video just conveniently ends. First of all, if that was real and you saw that sliding across the road, why would you get that close to it? Surely the natural thing to do would be just to stay in your car and maybe run it over. I don't know. Apparently the witch is from the game Left 4 Dead, and I'm pretty sure it is. Good try, True Chooser, but not good enough. At number 4 is the Michigan Dogman. Why are there so many hybrid human-animal creatures lurking around? I mean, I'm not mad at it, but is it a cause for concern? Maybe. The first ever sighting of the Michigan Dogman was in 1887 when 2 lumberjacks claimed to have seen a massive creature that had the body of a man and the head of a dog. Countless sightings of
When type 2 diabetes drained Tasha's energy, Crystal Run Healthcare helped her get back to living life on her own terms. Watch
beasts have been reported for years, and the creature is usually blamed for the death of pets and horses. A photo was submitted by a boy who was just sitting in the back of his parents' minivan, and it's blurry, but you can definitely make out it's an animal of some kind, and it looks massive. If anything, I feel like the head looks like a massive tiger's head rather than a dog's. I don't know which dog looks like that, honestly, but it does look bipedal for sure. A sighting in 1977 happened where 2 brothers were biking near Manistee National Forest, and one got left behind, and as he turned around, he saw a face covered in black fur watching him from behind a tree. But the face was a good 7 feet off the ground, and as soon as they made eye contact, the creature ran away. The brother followed him and noticed dark red bands of colored fur on both of his ankles, and I love how this thing could probably take him in a 1v1, but it just ran away scared. I sensed the dogness in him. Maybe he just wanted a friend. Filling our number 3 slot is the Donkey Lady. I've read about a lot of legends. Now, I've read a lot of legends in my time here at Top 10, but I've never actually encountered this one, originating in San Antonio, Texas. In the 50s, a woman was really badly burnt in a house fire, and I'm talking third-degree burns everywhere. Her face was disfigured, and her toes and fingers burnt off completely, making her feet and hands look like hooves. On top of that, if that wasn't bad enough, both of her children were killed in the fire as well, which was the last straw for the woman, and I'm really not surprised. She slowly descended into madness. Locals in town decided to banish her for her crazy rantings, and she went and lived under an old stone bridge located off Applewhite Road. The bridge is between 2 forests or woodland areas where she usually hides and then attacks passerbys. I mean, should I be saying creature? Would she be a ghost by now? I have no clue. Anyone living in San Antonio, have you witnessed this? Let me know in the comments below. Now at number 2 is the Hodag. Now this one came from Wisconsin folklore and is meant to be a small but fierce animal, quite like myself. Found in forests and caves alike, according to an 1893 newspaper report, it was said to have the head of a frog, the face of a giant elephant, short legs with huge claws, the back of a dinosaur,
I like this one better, bro. The old gameplay,
I don't even get how you can fit an elephant's face on a frog's head. Like, surely the proportions just aren't possible. Claims about the beast were made by land surveyor and local prankster Eugene Shepard, who gathered a group of people to capture the beast. They said they used dynamite to kill it, and pictures of the charred remains were given to the media. I mean, are we gonna believe unreliable source Eugene? Are we not? It apparently went extinct after its main source of food, all white bulldogs, became scarce in the area. And finally, at number 1 is the Wendigo. Now, this is a supernatural beast that comes from Algonquin First Nations folklore in Canada. Woohoo, Canada! They live in forests and other wooded areas, but the first thing you'll find out about a Wendigo is that they're a cannibalistic monster that eat and kill anything in their path. In the legend, Wendigos come to be when humans are overtaken by greed or when they're weakened by extreme conditions like cold or hunger. They're known to infect communities and people with the purest form of evil. Miss me with that. Looks-wise, they vary. Some are known to be extremely thin, with their skeletons pushing out of their ashy mummy-like skin. Other stories say they're giants who become bigger the more they eat. Their ears are pointed, or they sometimes have antlers coming out of their head, and their eyes are like sunken black holes of death. certified. They're known to have certain powers, like their senses are heightened to like vampire from Twilight level. They have superhuman strength and stamina that lets them stalk their prey for weeks if they have to, just like the vampires from Twilight. They can move at the speed of the wind and can walk over deep snow or water without sinking. So far the Wendigo is looking like a Cullen. In terms of killing them, you can kill them with a gun or a bat, but more complicated stories about it claim you have to cut its heart out and melt it in a fire. And I mean, good luck getting close enough to it to cut its heart out. Honestly, it'll most likely cut your heart out before you even get that far. So, I mean, pick your battles.
At number 10, we have Griffith Park, Los Angeles, USA. This park is a pretty famous tourist destination. People from all over this world will come to this place to see the spot where Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone did some dances from La La Land. Personally, I never saw the movie, so I don't really care. But beyond this forest being blessed by the presence of Hollywood A-listers, it has also been cursed. The park was previously owned by Don Antonio Felice. He was a wealthy man and he had a niece, Tanya. Things were going pretty good for them. They were all rich and stuff. They're living in a massive park. Then the family hit some hard times. Don got smallpox and died in 1863. This would be an even worse outcome for his niece. She thought she was gonna get a big payday when her uncle passed, but turns out he left her nothing in his will. So she put a curse on the whole park. Since then, there have been several murders, fires, and even satanic rituals inside this park. At number 9, we have Eden Park, Cincinnati, Ohio. If you're in Cincinnati,
I'm waiting
Ohio,
for Tay to jump on. He usually be jumping on too. Oh yeah, I forgot he started his job though. You probably just watched the Cincinnati Bengals lose, and now you're on your way to watch the Reds do the same. But if you wanted to make your time there a little worse, you might want to take a stroll through Eden Park. This place is apparently haunted by the ghost of Imogene Remus. She was killed in the park by her husband. It was 1927, and she was on her way to the law office to get some divorce papers so she could leave her husband. Well, he didn't like this very much, so he chased her down in his car and shot her dead right in the park. It is said that now the park is haunted by the lady in the black dress. At number 8, we have Elfin Forest, San Diego, USA. A common theme for this list is a lot of gruesome things can happen in a forest. I thought they were all supposed to be cherry picking and picnic, but there's also you gotta pay attention to this top 10 shit too, you feel me?
Elfin Forest has a ton of supernatural
Oh yeah. He went back to
be
Georgia.
The home of mythical creatures. If you're there the right time of year,
I'm not gonna hold you. A lot of the shit that they be speaking about in this top 10 most amazing, like I'm not gonna hold you. Like it's not bullshit, you feel me? Like
more rooted in reality.
They really putting people onto a lot of the shit that people wanted to keep from out from like
the townfolk living close to this forest really didn't like them. They hated them so much that they went in with some pitchforks and torches to drive them all out. Many of the gypsies made it away, but the few that weren't quick enough were killed. The crazy part is that a lot of the shit that they jack as myths is the shit that our ancestors used to, you feel me, tell stories of not only where they came from, you feel me, but like their accomplishments in their endeavors, you feel me? At number 7, we have Jack London State Historic Park, Glen Ellen, USA. Jack London is a famous author, so famous that he actually got a whole state park named after him. I mean, if I lived my whole life and did awesome things, so awesome that people wanted to name something after me, I would probably want a burrito chain. But I guess a park is fine too, I just think it's kind of lame. But this park was named after Jack because his family used to live out there on their massive ranch. He was even building his dream home out on this park until a huge fire burned it down. What a bummer. He didn't even get to see it finished before he died. Now the wreckage just sits on the park. And apparently him and his wife were both buried in the park, and now they haunt the burned down house. Like, dude, get over it. The house is gone. You're dead. It's time to move on.
That's a fact. And then I'm not gonna hold you. The ones that's really rewriting it, they not even claiming it as this. They rewrite it so that they can profit off it. Not you feel me? Like them niggas is smart, you feel me? And like those are the niggas that you would never even hear about, know about, cause they understand like what's done in the dark is best. I mean, light come from the dark, not vice versa. So that's why they hide in that bitch. Why they do what they do, you feel me?
At number 6, we have Highgate Cemetery, London, England. This cemetery was established in the middle of a forest back in the 1800s. The problem with building a cemetery in the middle of a forest is it takes a lot of upkeep. And apparently, this was way too much work because it wasn't long before the place was pretty much abandoned and the forest started to take over. It remains a landmark, but a forgotten one. But when it became a hot spot to shoot horror movies, there was a surge of new visitors. This breath of fresh air also brought some new rumors about the park being plagued by supernatural things. Mainly
And then the crazy part is that a lot of this shit would never come up on the news, you feel me? But they got nerve to talk about all that other XYZ elemental P baby back bullshit, you feel me?
Vampire hunters from all over the world all hot and bothered. So they started to travel there to the park, dig up the graves, and stab the dead bodies in the hearts with wooden stakes, just in case, which I totally support. The people are dead. They don't care if you dig them up. And if they are vampires, then I want to make sure they're dead. And if vampire hunting does nothing for you, another reason to visit this park is there's famous people buried there. Kinda cool. At number 5, we have Hunting Island, South Carolina, USA. The Hunting Island State Park is not only home to a beautiful lush forest, but also a mysterious lighthouse. Nothing like a good old-fashioned lighthouse ghost. The lighthouse is at the edge of the forest and has a few different specters that have been seen roaming around it. There's one of an old, grumpy lighthouse keeper who has never forgiven himself for a young boy drowning on the premises, and the other is of his daughter that killed herself inside the lighthouse. This guy can't catch a break. I'm sorry, dude. At number 4, we have the Black Forest, Germany. This place seems to be ripped right out of a fairy tale. We could go on for hours and hours about the different legends involving this forest. It's said to be the home of different species of dwarves, elves, and a whole bunch of other things that coexist. If you're interested in getting some werewolf powers, there's also said to be werewolves in this place. And there's a king who will steal your girlfriend and take her to his underwater world. I don't know if he teaches you how to breathe underwater before he kidnaps you, but there's nothing about that in the brochure. This is the kind of place that I would like to avoid, because I don't want to be the guy who walks into a forest and then some little fairy is like, you're the chosen one, and then I gotta spend the next 6 months saving some magical beings from a dark lord. Like, I have plans this weekend. I don't have time for this. At number 3, we have the China State Camp Park, San Rafael, USA. It's beautiful. It's right next to the beach. It's the kind of place you go on one knee and propose to the person you want to be with for the rest of your life. But it's also the spot of one of the darkest murders I've ever heard about. A young girl and her family and her boyfriend were all out for a nice family barbecue in the park. Probably had one of those little portable grills, a bunch of burgers. Maybe they were gonna roast some marshmallows at the end of the night. Well, for whatever reason, this wonderful evening inspired this young girl and her boyfriend to kill the girl's
It's like they should have really like perfected this kind of mode of playing.
They ended up burning her dead parents' body parts on a campfire to try and get rid of
It's like everybody wanted to jump on that open world bag.
I'm sure a lot of you at home remember when Logan Paul did his little trip over to this forest for some views. The Okihara Forest is at the base of Mount Fuji and is better known for its name, the Suicide Forest. It has been the most popular spot in the world for people to kill themselves. People who enter this forest for any other reason, say to go for a hike, might run into the body of someone who went in there to end their own. Police visit this forest often to remove the bodies, but because of the density of the forest and the twisting paths, it can be very hard to locate people's dead bodies. It's also very easy to get lost in there. If all that wasn't enough for you to want to jump out of your skin, then I'll let you know this is also a hot spot for ghosts and demons. Many Japanese legends tell of demons that live in the forest. They say demons corrupt the minds of people, and that's why so many people travel there to kill themselves in the forest. At number 1, we have Yosemite National Park, California, USA. For our number 1 spot, we have one of the most beautiful places in all of America. For real, you cannot come here without gaining a massive appreciation
to me, it's
for
more
nature
than just a
and
game, bro. Like, that shit is like an opening to another realm of thinking. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's literally the Final Fantasy. You know what I'm saying now? But think about it though, bro. How can there ever be a Final Fantasy when fantasy itself is the accumulation of imagination? You get what I'm saying? Like, bro, this shit really like, it's more than just a game, beloved. I ain't gonna hold you.
Lost in the gorgeous landscape. But for sure, the biggest celebrity you could run into from the spectral realm,
especially for niggas who don't gotta wait to like
his ghost has been seen walking around the Alhambra Hotel located in the park. If any of you viewers are planning a trip there and you see him, please just walk up to him for me and say, hey.
That's a whole fact, bro. At number 10, we have Yuna, baby Yuni.
Interesting travel channel. It follows Lance and his dog as they take a camper van through a lot of the UK and some of Europe. It's an interesting perspective to see how you can get by on very minimal resources. Now, for the most part, this is just a regular travel channel, but on one episode, he runs into something very strange. He's driving through the woods in France and stops at a place to camp. He's doing a video breakdown and his dog
Dude, that's a fact, bro. Like, I was just telling my cousin, because he's watching it on YouTube, but I was just telling him, bro, like, this one, like, they should have kept this gameplay. You get what I'm talking about? Like the turn-based gameplay when it came into Final Fantasy. Everybody wanted to jack that open world shit, bro. That shit fake fucked it up. Well, I'm not gonna sit here and say it fucked it up. Cause Final Fantasy is still fucking fire, bro. Like, but this shit, I mean, you don't touch it. Nah, this one is 10 too, bro. This one is the spin-off to Final Fantasy 10. Know what I mean? Because, you know, Yuna and shit, like, went off by her own. But in Final Fantasy X, she was the summon wielder, you know? So she was just walking around. She was basically just like the main side bitch, you feel me?
Mystery forest lady behind. At number 9, we have Mexican.
Yeah, that's a fact. After 13, like, but see, Lightning really went crazy with it because they had 13, 2, and Lightning's return. They know they had to get her an extra one, man. They had no business shutting that one down. That's how you know. That's how you know that form of playing, that mode of playing was definitely fire, bro. You're not gonna see no games that's like 15-2. And you know what I'm talking about? Like, first of all, it's open world. It ends with 15. If anything, just add DLCs. You get what I'm talking about? Like, the nostalgia's going. You can't add no type of, you know what I mean?
I don't know if this burning phantom really wants
yeah, you ain't never lied, beloved. I'm not gonna hold you. Like, Lightning, like, she's like top 3 anime, period. Like, period, hands down. Like, that's man, listen. Nigga said lonely nights, man. She remember them lonely nights with me, baby. I'm telling you.
And now footage of a mythical beast walking through the snow. Let's check it out.
Nah, you ain't never lied, nigga said it. Shorty can't do it like that. Get out of here. You better do a backflip out this motherfucker and land on the floor.
Are we related to Yetis? I don't know if they're real. But these guys are super freaked out, obviously, because they just saw something that most people think don't exist. I don't know what they're saying because it's in Russian, but if anyone cracks the code,
yeah, but I'm not gonna hold you. Final Fantasy music is like, it's like a J-pop mixed with, I'm not gonna hold you because they hit orchestra, opera, they do all kinds of different shit, bro. It just like, it hits you different, it hits your soul. I ain't gonna hold you.
And this mystery howling could be either. Based on what I can hear in this video, I'm going to lean towards dangerous.
I'm not gonna hold you. I would play the Final Fantasy background music, but they be like, they got it copywritten. So if I do play it, then they gonna pause my whole shit and shut it down.
And this could be one of those, just a different animal like a mountain lion trying to impersonate a wolf or something, or maybe trying to impersonate fear itself. At number 6, we have more howling. It seems like terrifying howling coming from the deep dark woods is a lot more normal than we thought. But it doesn't make it any less scary. We have some more footage from a separate incident.
I'm not gonna hold
you.
Finna look crazy. Like,
it could be some sort of wounded animal.
Get that boy some type of expression or something.
Like, you maybe be a wolf. Let's check it out.
You know, but like the crazy part is, I really see this being
This video sounds a little
the
bit
road
more
that
animalistic than the last, but what
future
kind of creature could make
is
that
on.
noise?
This is what America, all the countries, like the world is gonna be, like the state that it's gonna be in soon.
Fear like that. At number 5, we have an unexpected guest.
Overran with personal egos and tragedies.
Maybe a cute family of squirrels. But you forget that there's also a bunch of animals that live in the woods that would gladly eat you.
So you think you know Wix? Do you really?
Ooh, video time to roll a blind.
First up, we've got shape video masks. You can use different shapes to create completely different vibes and aesthetics. Or you can create your own graphic. I use the shape composition here. Just import any SVG file and set it as a shape mask. Nice. Next up, we'll keep it moving with the hover box. You can use it to animate any element and create these really eye-catching interactions. And what I love is that the level of control you get here is crazy precise. You can set your animation ease, scale size, and position to create this really dope effect. Third, we've got the mega menu. This not only lets you organize your site menu into different subcategories, but it also looks amazing when you add in different elements like text, buttons, images, and pretty much anything you can think of. And last but not least, we've got My Designs. This feature lets you save any section or component that you've already created, and you can use it as a starting point on any other pages or sites you're working on.
Good pages.
This one's personally saved me a ton of time. So you got all these features. Now see what you...
More time.
There's a mountain lion right here.
Holy crap, this guy had one of the top predators in the forest just walking up on him like it was nobody's business. This thing has no fear, and this is a few minutes into the video. This cougar has been following him for a while.
Just playing the game and having that knowledge from 10 to 10 2, not like that shit fire.
And leaves. This guy got very
shit
lucky.
Like that
I feel like those things don't usually turn and run tail. If they want to come at you, then you are done for. Unless you're this guy who killed a mountain lion with his bare hands.
It really clicked after I hit it in the head with the rock.
Yo, make sure y'all bring niggas over to the stream too. Like, if you know niggas that be fucking with Final Fantasy and shit, know what I mean? And you know, like, as the call-outs come out,
even more scream.
I'm gonna be dropping them shit, but you know, that's typically in the morning and shit.
Well, I had to include this
so you know, the
one
market
because
closes
it
after
seems
4.
like it could be some sort of ape-like creature screaming from the woods, so it could be a
But you know,
Bigfoot,
sometimes
and
I
you
be
can't
getting
have
some
a
drops
list of
about
scary
shit that we
things
could
caught
be
on
able to
video
do
in a
tomorrow, you
forest
feel
or in
me?
the woods without Bigfoot stuff. It's so necessary. I mean, it could be anything, but that doesn't sound like any sort of animal I've ever heard. Some people have made claims that it could be a howler monkey, but the video was taken in Georgia, and there ain't no howler monkeys in Georgia, I'll tell you that much. At number 3, we have a man in the woods. If you spend a night in an abandoned hotel in the middle of the woods, there's a good chance that you're going to run into some sort of weird stuff that will make you
what's that, bro?
your pants. This was the plan of German YouTubers Iblali.
And like what platform is it on?
For their fans. The footage was pretty creepy, and after they uploaded it, their fans found a little Easter egg. I don't know if you guys saw what was lurking in the shadows, but there was a man standing there, and they didn't notice that he was there until after they uploaded the video. Some people saw it and then highlighted it to the YouTubers. So who is this dude, and why was he just following them in the woods? At number 2, we have Midnight Terror. So much of what happens in this video is horrifying. It's from the YouTube channel called MindCTV, and they decide to go find a bunch of condemned buildings in the middle of the forest in the middle of the night. Let's just go down the list of things that happen. First, someone starts following them as they're walking through the woods. You never see this person, but you hear them whistling and you can hear their footsteps. Next, they hear this mystery stalker get very close to them, and they actually set up some bell tripwires, and the guy trips over them and they hear the bells ringing. Then they find the building, they go inside, and then they use this device to communicate with ghosts. This whole adventure is just one giant nope for me. I don't want anything to do with this, and I never want to hang out with these guys. Oh my god, they just seem like they attract terror or something. I don't like it. And for the number 1 spot, we have a horror scene. A hiker was walking through the woods. He follows a trail that leads to what seems to be some sort of small campsite set up in the middle of the woods. What he finds is very bizarre, unexplained, and terrifying. On several of the trees surrounding this makeshift campsite in the middle of the woods, it looks like there's signs set up. At first, it seems like they could be some sort of wildlife warning, but on closer inspection, you find
it's
this,
sad when we
it's
live in the days
horrifying.
now where if a man and a female was to be that close as to where he's just like her big brother and he just want to look out for her and shit like that, they automatically assume to be fucking on something that's more than what it truly is. You get what I'm talking about? And that shit just goes to show like the play on the state upon which man's mind is in. You feel me? Like,
these posters are from people who have actually gone missing and haven't been found.
Fucking old video games got this shit better than we do.
And then
you
he
feel
hears
me?
voices coming, so he hightails it out of there before whoever these people are can find him. Once he gets out of this terror scene, he contacts the police and gave them the GPS location that he got from his phone, and the police go to investigate. This entire scene was connected to a nearby property. They claim that it was all decoration for a Halloween party. It was the beginning of October, so it's
that should sound
that
fire. I'm not gonna hold you.
To some sort of Halloween party, but it seems
I'm
like
gonna give it like I'm gonna see what's up with it. Cause I have a Dreamcast on my PC.
It is so creepy and so weird. At number 10, we have the Screaming Forest. Wow, this place sounds
Yo, I'm telling you, man, after everything is said and done,
we should head over there
and we get back to real community standards, this is how community is gonna be. Everybody, kids run around playing, everything open. What do we have doors for? We got little sheets up. You get what I'm talking about? Beds up, chilling up. That's real community. This is real community right here.
Why would people call them that? Well, because at night or even sometimes
that's another reason why I like playing games like this. You feel me? Like,
I probably
show you a portion of shit. We don't even get to see no more.
There is more that goes along with this
shit our ancestors be trying to have us like remember so we can bring back.
There's a fog that will roll in and make it so you can never find your way out of these deep, dark woods. The voices that can be heard screaming from there are all the people who wandered through the woods, got lost, and their souls are forever trapped walking. Yeah, I'm gonna pass on this one. At number 9, we have the Devil's Trampling Ground. There's a patch of land in North Carolina that has some super bad mojo on it. It's unknown what happened to this little circle, but for some reason nothing
that
grows.
Screaming Forest shit vicious.
But
that shit nothing like the dead forest, the forest of death in Japan.
Well, there's higher than normal levels of radiation, which some people think means a UFO landed there.
Literally shit got more of a body rape than motherfucking Chicago, you hear me?
That stands the test of time is that the devil comes out in this area at night and walks around, using this place as an area where you can walk and think. It's Lucifer's meditation spot in the woods. Oh, that's actually kind of cute. Legend goes even deeper to say no camper has ever been able to spend a night in this circle. At number 8, we have the Epping Forest. We are heading back to the UK for a forest that is packed full of lost bodies. It's unknown how many people are buried in these woods, but some people think it could be hundreds. Back in the 1700s, people came to these woods to dispose of
the crazy part is that it's not even the fact that people is competing against each other instead of building, because competition produces growth. It's the fact that individuals are competing against each other without even understanding and realizing that they're doing it under the biases and propagandized motives of another individual who's ultimately just trying to get what they can get as much as possible and quick as possible and then get the fuck out after everyone else falls from what they just did. You get what I'm talking about? Now, for instance, if me and my man compete to see who gonna make the most this week, we just both fed our families. If we compete and keep it inside the circle, you get what I'm talking about? But if another nigga plans is what's keeping us and making us compete, now we moving and competing in the terms and like on his standards, not on ours. You feel me? Cause shit, I compete with myself every day, nigga. I get up and say, fuck, my bum ass only did 20 yesterday, so now I gotta do 30, nigga. You get what I'm talking about? Like, so like competition is necessary. You feel me? Like, it's necessary. But that's like this, right? If I give you $1 million, you don't even know what the fuck money is. It's just paper at that point, burning. You feel me?
Well, his half sister put a hex on this valley that would attract young men to it, seduce them into the forest to be lost forever. Specifically, young men who had been unfaithful. So if you've cheated on anyone recently, you're not going to want to take a walk through these woods, or Morgan is going to cast a spell on you that will turn you into
that Japan forest vicious, bro. I'm not gonna hold you, but I fake wanna go.
I know I said we were done
because it's like I guess that forest only fuck with people that's like you gotta be a bad nigga. You got what I'm talking about? Like spiritually, you gotta be a fucked up individual. You know, like one of them rich niggas out there making little kids mind cobalt and shit, thinking that they're cool and good people, humanitarians.
I digress. She was
then they go through the woods and shit and die.
Know where she died of a broken neck. Pretty suspicious, if you ask me. Well, the Earl went hunting in the Witchwood Forest not long after that, and his young wife met him there. Well, it wasn't his young wife, but it was the ghost of his young wife who was walking through the woods. She told him that he was gonna die in 10 days. You know, like the movie The Ring probably stole this from her. Well, guess what, guys? He did, and it said that her ghost still walks around the forest to this day, cursing people to an early death. At number 5, we have the Pine Barrens.
Real shit, bro, but I promise one thing, you heard niggas gonna change that.
A monster. You can't have a list of cursed forests without a good old-fashioned monster making it onto the list. What is more cursed than a massive thing flying around
anyway,
right? People?
Might as well die trying.
Well, the Pine Barrens is in New Jersey, and it's said to be home to none other than the Jersey Devil. What on earth is the Jersey Devil, you may ask? Well, it's said to be a massive monster that has bat wings, hooves, claws, horns, and the appetite for large animals, mainly eating deers, cows, and goats, but I wouldn't be surprised if it chose to chomp down on a person every now and again. That's why we need to stop deforestation. Forget about climate change. The Jersey Devil is gonna fly out of the forest into your home and then eat you in the middle of the night. At number 4, we have the Freetown State Forest. Holy moly, the Freetown State Forest is basically the History Channel at 3 a.m. Apparently everything goes on there. There have been UFOs, demons, cultists, ghosts, werewolves, even Bigfoot likes to walk through this place when he's feeling bored. Why have there been so many crazy things happening in this one place? Well, it's because someone pissed off the Wampanoag tribe. They were the Native Americans that used to call this place home. They would party there, live there, and they were probably doing great until greed took over their chief and he sold their land. Like, what the hell, dude? That is so uncool. You can't just sell everyone's homes for your own gain. Well, the people of the tribe weren't going to take this land down, and they decided that they would muster up the spiritual energy that they had and put a curse on the land. Now it pulls in all sorts of bad mojo, and you do not want to mess with this area. And number 3, we have the Smolensk forest in Russia. Now this forest doesn't seem to have a curse on it, but it has an insane amount of spectral activity, which is basically a curse. You can't walk through this place alone without having 15 ghosts follow you out asking for you to avenge them. So I think that qualifies for this list. Also, the story about this place is horrifying, so I thought it was perfect for the list, because just reading about what happened here scared the crap out of me. It was back in World War II when some German troops were walking through this forest. They came across an open patch of land that had been recently dug up. Russian troops were in the area, so it would have been an order of Joseph Stalin to dig up this area, but why did they do it? Upon further inspection, it was discovered that the reason the land was dug up was for a mass grave.
Yo, make sure that y'all share it too, you feel me, on the social medias, whoever y'all, because I'm pretty sure y'all know somebody who fucks with Final Fantasy, bro. Like, this a generational game. This shit ain't just, oh, why you smacking me like that, pussy?
We have the Dow Hill Forest. Right off the bat, there is a road in this forest called Death Road. Doesn't that sound like a great place to hang out if you want to live a long and prosperous life? Yeah. So what makes this forest cursed? Well, it is a hot spot for murderers. Killers have been using these woods as a place to stalk and kill people for centuries. Some people say it's just a good spot to kill people and that's why they keep doing it. Other people say there is a dark energy coming from the woods that attracts people who want to hurt other people. On top of that, there are past victims who walk through these woods. Ghosts of headless boys have been seen frequently. And for the number 1 spot,
you know, the crazy part is that a lot of people that live up here, right, seem to forget that, you know, upstate New York is one of the, like, pillars of the United States, well, not even the United States, the United States government, and, like, how they started the whole, you know, 13 colonies and all that bullshit. You know, we right over here by exactly what they did about Pennsylvania and all of that. That's why, like, a lot of these towns, Monticello, Livingston, and, like, Livingston Manor and all of that stuff, like, they're named after these individuals. Like, Monticello was one of the, like, I believe, lieutenants for motherfucking, the Livingston nigga, and the George Livingston nigga, like, that's what, that his manor was in Livingston Manor, nigga. That's why it was called that. Like, we live in a lot of these old ass areas. We took on the haunted woods and all that shit.
Starting off this list,
know what I mean?
10, we have
that shit be real, and that shit hit different when you realize how close to home it is. You feel me?
I don't speak Spanish, I'm sorry, but you've all seen these pictures before. And if you haven't, well, get ready to brace yourselves, because this is some pretty creepy stuff. Okay, see, what did I tell you? This is what nightmares are made of, and you guys have seen it before, these pictures. Well, let me tell you how this creepy doll forest started. On this island, a caretaker found a body of a girl in one of the canals. He found the doll floating in the water, and he decided to hang it from one of the trees as some sort of, like, tribute. He continued to hang thousands of dolls until he drowned in the exact same spot where that girl died. Some people believe that the dolls are evil, while others believe that the dolls keep the island safe. So today a lot of tourists come to visit this island. I personally don't see the appeal. I definitely don't have this creepy doll island on my bucket list, but for those people who visit the island, they say that they can see the dolls move their eyes, heads, and limbs. I mean, no thanks. I guess the dolls must be possessed by evil spirits or something, but I'm not about to go there and find out. I'm not about that life. Up next, number 9, we have the Pima Barrens. The forest spans over 1 million acres and it is located in New Jersey. According to the local legend, the Jersey Devil is known to roam around this forest. He was born in 1735, except he didn't look like a child. He was born with leather wings, a ghost head, and hooves. He flew up a chimney and into the forest, and he has been killing livestock and creeping out the residents ever since. Locals living near the forest can hear high-pitched screams, and they're too scared to venture into these woods because they don't want to come face to face with this demon. Coming into number 8, we have the Wychwood Forest in England. Hands reaching out and touching you, and a horse-drawn cart carrying a couple of their crying children. Well, these are just a few things that you'll see if you decide for some reason to go inside of these woods. But one of the scariest legends that originated in this forest is about Amy Robsart. She mysteriously died of a broken neck, but she confronted her husband as a ghost and told him that he will join her in 10 days. And sure enough, he died after becoming ill with an unknown reason,
Look at
but
that
it
right
also
there, bro. I ain't
said
gonna hold
that
you. That shit
anyone
is
who
fire.
walks into this forest
This
and
unplug,
sees
yo, bro.
Amy
I'd rather
Robsart will
instead of
die
watching
shortly
TV,
after. So,
turn this
yeah,
shit
my
on,
recommendation
pause the
would
game
be
right
to
here,
stay
sit
far,
back
far away
and chill.
from
Me and
these
Uni,
woods.
baby.
The
Me
Freetown
and
Fall
Uni,
River
baby.
State Forest is next up at number 7. Now this is pretty unlucky, number 7. This forest is known as a paranormal breeding ground. It is believed to be the shire of a bunch of satanic murders that occurred in the 70s and the 80s.
That's what you playing right now?
UFO sightings here, poltergeist activity.
I'm not gonna hold you. Like I had grabbed it, but I didn't really like get into it. Once again, that's another one. It's like, yo, stay what you was, bro. Like I remember Street Fighter. That's not the Street Fighter I remember. It's not Street Fighter I want to play. I'm good. Call me what you will.
Faces, push or shove them, kidnap them, hurl them off a cliff,
I'd rather play Smash Brothers. At least Smash Brothers still kept it a little funky. You feel me?
For a lot of deaths that have occurred here, and people still report seeing them in this forest. The Devil's Tramping Ground curses us in at number 6. Located in North Carolina, these woods are known as one of the most haunted places in this state. The Devil's Tramping Ground is located deep within a forest, but it is a perfectly round 40-foot circle, and the circle doesn't have one single flower, weed, or blade of grass. That's because anything that gets planted here will either wither and die. If that doesn't seem strange to you, if you put an object in the circle before sunset, it will violently be thrown out of the circle before sunrise. When dogs get too close to the circle, they will whimper and bark, and they would refuse to go in.
And the crazy part is that as much as this shit happened, people continue to fuck with the spirits, bro. Like, leave them be, beloved. Fuck.
It is believed that this is where the devil comes out at night to do his pacing and thinking. Because of this area has a really bad reputation. Well, yeah, no duh. People have seen red eyes glowing there at night, and they can feel like something bad is about to happen. Well, here's a clip of 2 guys who thought it would be, you know, a great idea to visit the Devil's Tramping Ground. What they found will shock you.
Or had to get out here.
I might get into that shit. I'm not gonna hold you. Just cause it make me remember. You know what I'm talking about? Like it's the nostalgia behind it.
They're called bionic boomers. Seniors once riddled with debilitating
I thought that
arthritis
said
given
bionic
early
boobers.
sunlight, thanks to Dr.
The Burial Ground Forest takes us into number 5. Let's travel over to England and into the Epping Forest. This forest is so large that it's become a very popular hideout for criminals on the run, and it's also a very notorious forest for dead bodies. This 6,000-acre forest has been the hideout for a lot of dangerous criminals and murders.
If I'm not mistaken,
this
I think
definitely
it's
isn't a nice place
cool,
for
bro.
kids to play in. And on top of that, there are hundreds of dead bodies buried in these woods from gruesome murders. Oh, and a lot of children were targeted here by Ronald Jepson, who was a very sick pedophile and murderer. It is also said that cars parked on Hangman's Hill are said to roll uphill when they're parked in neutral. I don't know why you would ever park your car on Hangman's Hill. I mean, the name alone says it all. The Screaming Woods come onto this list at number 4. Well, this sounds like the absolute worst place to host a camping trip. I mean, am I right? The actual name of this place is Durwing Woods, and it is located in Somerton, England. Hikers have said they can hear blood-curdling screams coming from the forest at night, and they can also hear footsteps and whispers on foggy days. Apparently, a man was captured and killed in these woods by local villagers in the 18th century, and it is believed that his ghost still holds a grudge and will do anything in his power to harm the living. While others believe that the hauntings are caused by 20 ghosts who were found
you be
dead
playing
in the
Ghost of
forest from a
Tsushima?
massacre that occurred in 1948. Autopsies were done on the bodies, but they couldn't determine a cause of death. The Dow Hill Forest comes crashing on this list.
Hell yeah, bro. Marvel vs. Capcom 2, that's a fact. That's another one. And cause the last one that came out was the Universe one, if I'm not mistaken.
And lots of
part
people
3.
have seen a headless boy wandering around in the trees along the path. This creepy path is known as Death Road, and if you ever find yourself walking around this path, you will feel like you're being constantly watched by something evil. Some people have even seen the red eyes staring at them. There's even a ghost of a woman dressed in gray, and you aren't supposed to look or talk to her. And there is something in the air that will make you feel like you're losing your mind. And for some, the air makes them kill themselves. And now at number 2, we have the Suicide Forest in Japan.
Yo, that's the forest I was talking about. The Suicide Forest.
This infamous forest. The Suicide Forest can be found at the base of Mount Fuji, and it's arguably one of the most scary places in the entire world. There are rumors that the iron in these woods interfere with compasses, which causes hikers to go in the wrong direction.
So you walking that forest, you ain't walking out, pimp.
These hikers will become so lost that they can't find their way out. But what makes things even worse is that the forest has been the site of more than 500 reported suicides since the 1950s. People claim that they can hear their spirits scream throughout the night, and you can hear necks breaking. And yes, this is the infamous forest that, you know, Logan Paul did his shenanigans in. You guys know the whole thing. I'm not going to get into it. Coming in number 1, we have the most haunted forest in the world, the Hoia Baciu Woods, located in Romania. It's almost like this guy named the forest after he sneezed. Baciu. Well, if you value your life, you will never ever step foot in these forests, and I'll tell you why. It covers 250 hectares of land, and it is referred to as the Bermuda Triangle of the country. It has a reputation for intense paranormal activity and unexplained things that have happened here. Brave people who have entered these woods have seen ghosts, faces appearing in photos, unexplained figures, and UFO sightings. If you go into this forest, you will feel intense anxiety and feel like you're being watched. People who live near the forest are afraid to go in because they believe the people who visit will never return home. Some of the locals who were crazy enough to go inside complained of having rashes, allergia, vomiting, migraines, burns, scratches, anxieties, and other weird feelings. But get this, some people even believe that the forest is a gateway to another dimension. People have been known to disappear in these woods, and strange lights can also be seen. A 5-year-old girl wandered into the woods and got lost, but apparently she came out of the woods 5 years later, wearing the same clothes, but she actually had no memory of what happened within those 5 years. I mean, I'm just getting goosebumps thinking about it. When I read that, I couldn't believe it.
Number 10. Abandoned car. A desert park ranger on Reddit shared a few of their stories that they had experienced while working. One that stands out is their discovery of a burned and abandoned car. When they received the report, they weren't too shocked, as it wasn't a rare occurrence that cars would be stolen and abandoned, occasionally being burned. When they found the vehicle, and as they waited for the fire department to arrive, they were left standing in shock, as it was clear that there was a body left in the front seat of the car. They discovered rope and other strange items in the car, and it was determined that the body had been tied up and killed. The police arrived, but no answers ever came about what had happened there, and they now refer to the area as the haunted site. Number 9. Abandoned sites. It's not uncommon to find abandoned campsites in the woods, but these rangers share their stories of the unique, strange, and scary things they found that made them stand out. The first was an abandoned house with a small shed hidden behind it. The shed had a large steel door which had been broken off its hinges when they found it. The windows had been boarded over and covered up, but venturing inside, they found only a queen-sized bed covered with burned sheets.
Imagine you find a fucking empty crib.
Found very close to the walking trail. Inside was a large stash of food like beans and rice, a sleeping bag, and a lonely teddy bear. Sometimes the stories with the least information and answers are scariest, as they allow our minds to wander and imagine various frightening scenarios. Number 8. Search returns strange evidence. A ranger and their coworker were called to head out and search for a group of teen hikers that had become separated from their group. They spent most of their day heading in the direction of where the teenagers had last been seen. Eventually, deep into the woods and their journey, they came across a startling discovery. They found branches which had been carved into spears placed into the ground, unidentifiable carvings in trees, children's stuffed toys hanging from ropes tied to the trees. One thing they noticed was that the symbols in the trees appeared to be freshly carved. As would be expected, the two were spooked, but settled down nearby as night was coming and they had to sleep. In the morning, they discovered shoe prints and a piece of fabric that had become caught on a tree. Someone had been there in the night. The teens were later discovered, and the two workers returned back to base, never knowing who had been in the woods with them that night. Number 7. Strange creature. A camp counselor in New York made a scary discovery when he was sneaking out late at night to meet up with his girlfriend. It was about 1 a.m. when he heard rustling in the woods next to him, expecting to be faced with something like a bear, deer, or other wild animal. Unexpectedly, a creature burst forth from the bushes towards him. In the darkness, he described the creature's appearance as being 3 feet tall, standing on 2 legs, and having 2 arms, looking like a miniature person. While it can be easy to misidentify animals in the dark of night, I personally can't think of any normal forest creature that would match anything close to this description. He then moved towards it and it apparently got scared, running away in a strange manner that the camp counselor described as being similar to doing the robot dance. To this day, he has no idea what the creature might have been. Number 6, light on the cliff. An unfortunate part of being a park ranger is having to go on search and rescue missions for missing people, and never knowing what state you might find them in, if at all. One park ranger recounts a story of him and his coworker on one of these calls, searching for a man in his 20s who had gone missing. As they spent the day searching with no luck, they decided to set up a camp and rest for the night. At about 2 a.m., he got up to go to the bathroom when he spotted a bright light moving on a cliff a few miles away, saying it looked to be like a flashlight beam. In the morning, they went to search that area and unfortunately found the missing man's body at the base of the cliff. What caught the ranger's attention was a flashlight, similar to the one he thought he had seen on the cliff. So it seems to make sense. The man had been walking with his flashlight and had unfortunately fallen.
The next time I
but it doesn't end there.
We gotta get
when
on
the coroner arrived to inspect
Street
the
Fighter.
body,
I'ma smoke you on that
the man
shit.
had clearly been dead
But
for
you
over
can,
48
like, is that shit
hours.
crossplay?
So how could it have been him shining his flashlight on the cliff the night before? Apparently, another search and rescue team member had been near the area and hadn't seen any other people. To this day, there seems to be no explanation for what that light was. Number 5, burned mannequins. Another park ranger on Reddit shared his experience while working at a national wildlife refuge that had formerly been home to a U.S. Army lab site. The site had been completely transformed to become a wildlife refuge, with years of thorough cleanup needing to be done on things like barbed wire fences and barricades before it could be opened. One night, when the ranger was walking deep into the forest, he saw figures in the distance. This caught him off guard, as you're not permitted to leave the trails at all. So who was out there?
Fuck you
The
mean you
ranger
thought
announced
I'd be
himself and
you
moved
trash.
closer. And what he discovered was 6 mannequins in military uniforms, which appeared to have been badly burnt. 6 burned figures standing around in the woods in the dark of night would have been scary for anyone to stumble upon, though apparently he chalked it up to having been part of a fabric test. Still pretty scary to discover though, and to think it was somehow missed in the decade-long cleanup of the park. Number
Don't
4,
think just cause I be
only
playing the
resident.
Final Fantasy and
A
shit,
park
like
ranger for a
I ain't
small
really,
island was the
I'm a
only
gamer for
year-round
real, bro.
resident
Like
of the area. The island had no bridges or ferries and could only be accessed by private boats. The island would be crowded in the summer, but in the off-season, the island was only inhabited by the ranger. Walking at night, he was adventuring around the island, seeing if he could hike the entire distance. He saw a flash of white in the distance, thinking it was a herd of the brown and white deer which were local to the area. He pressed forward
yo, go
before
relax,
hearing
go sit
something
down.
move again.
Fuck is you
Suddenly,
doing?
out of the woods came a 6-foot-tall man wearing a bright white shirt. He sprinted straight up to the ranger with a strange grin on his face before shouting and laughing loudly, quickly sprinting back into the woods again. The ranger was rightfully terrified because, as far as he knew, he was the only person on the small island. For the next few days, he tried to find any evidence
on the
of another
first fucking
person
trial,
living on
fuck is
the
you
island,
talking about?
but never
I
found
just
any
guessed that
campsite,
shit.
boats, or other signs of life.
Business has been going great.
I heard a lot of niggas tell me that they really him with a lot of things you up.
How we could have done it without Monday.com.
Number 3, mysterious stranger. A ranger was leading a
And you
hiking
know
trip
that
to the
outcome
top
was.
of a mountain in North Carolina, a difficult hike far from any civilization. When they reached the peak, they set up a camp on a beautiful clear night. Since it was so nice out, after the group had gone to bed in their tents, the ranger chose to sleep outside in a hammock, reading a book to pass the time. Due to the brightness of the camp and the moon, it was easy for them to see around the camp and the trail that they had taken to get there. They were soon caught off guard by the sight of something moving, expecting it to be a bear. But as they got closer, they realized it was the shape of a person. They found it odd to see someone
why
at
you
the
don't be
top
watching
of the
shit on
difficult
Twitch?
and long trail at night with no light or any sign of gear. They watched the person move closer towards the camp before the figure stopped, staring out at the camp. The figure stood there for a while before moving to sit under a tree, still staring intently. The ranger watched the man sit there for what was apparently a few hours.
Yeah, nah, I definitely
The figure
know.
got up and made his way back down to the trail. This left the poor ranger with a paranoid feeling of being followed for the remainder of the trip. Number 2, deer head. It's not uncommon to find animals or animal remains in the woods, circle of life and all that. But a Yellowstone ranger described their very bizarre experience, which occurred near a valley.
I'm about to start capping my streams at like 2
While walking
hours.
a trail, they found in the middle of the path the head of a deer. What was strange was that the head was perfectly clean, no sign of blood, and no sign of an animal having tried to eat it. The ranger didn't find any other signs of other animals that may have been around the area and done this. They also had no explanation.
Nah, my Twitch Omnifree 0.
As it was a doe. With
I got
no
2 of them,
antlers
but like the Omnifree 0 one is the new one. Cause my old one got like I had mad bots and shit inside there. I ain't want that shit. So I made a new one.
One wildland firefighter shares a story that his supervisor had told him many times. Apparently, in Idaho, the crew had been working on a large fire incident and would have to be there through the night in order to deal with it. The supervisor went out on an ATV to get a look at the nearby area when a large cat, seemingly a bobcat, ran out into the road. The animal stood there and stared at him for a while before letting out a loud scream and running up a tree nearby the road. While startling, it didn't appear to be any reason for concern. Further down the road, he discovered an abandoned cabin. This was also strange as the land was federal property and there should be no buildings. The house appeared derelict and was boarded up, everything inside appearing incredibly out of order. Unsettled, the supervisor got back on his ATV to head back, but at the exact same place where he had seen the bobcat, a woman stood in the road with a nightgown and bare feet. He asked if she needed help, to which she responded with a scream, before running up the same tree the bobcat had, faster than any human would be able to. After returning, he asked locals about the cabin in the area, recounting his experience, to which they told him that he had likely had an encounter with a skin changer.
Alright, team, everything looks good. Let's proceed with the incision. Skype that, please. Incision started, 5 centimeters. Give me a peach.
Peach, ready.
Yeah, that's a fact, bro. Yeah, cause the Twitch is better too. Cause like I'm not gonna hold you. The Twitch one, they pay more, and it's like I want to build that up better. You know, you feel me?
Now the picture was taken in 1995 when the Wem Town Hall in England caught fire. A local man snapped the picture, but authorities said there was no girl in the building either before or after. Instead, people think it was the ghost of Jane Churm, a girl who died over 300 years before after starting a fire there that destroyed many parts of the town. Perhaps she only appears in the flames. At the number 9 spot now, we have this picture of a ghostly figure scrambling up a staircase. It was taken in 1966 at a museum in Greenwich, England. He thought the picture would just be of the staircase, but was shocked to see what looks like a ghost holding onto the staircase banister with quite well-defined looking fingers. Now, some people say it was the ghost of a maid who died on that staircase 300 years before. Experts said the photograph negatives showed no signs of tampering. Moving on to number 8 now, guys. This picture was taken in 2006 when a photographer was visiting the abandoned Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Louisville, Kentucky. Ghost hunters claim that the image of a woman standing on the right of this picture is that of Mary Lee, a nurse at the facility who hung herself in the hospital. At the time, she was pregnant with a baby of a doctor there who had abandoned her. Alright, we have reached number 7 spot, and we have Freddie Jackson. This picture shows a British squadron in 1919. Now, at the very back is said to be the image of mechanic Freddie Jackson. The only problem is Shirley Jackson was killed days before this picture by an airplane propeller accident, and this picture was taken on the day of his funeral. Some people believe that the ghost of Freddy might not have even known that he was dead at the time and still turned up for the picture as planned. Okay, for number 6 now. This one was so creepy, I had to change my shirt. Corey Carlson uploaded this image to Instagram of him in his home. Now behind him we can see a strange ghostly apparition floating in the middle of the room. According to some research, he found an image of the woman who lived in the house before him back in 2001. Her name was Curtis Johnson, and a lot of people were freaking out on Instagram saying that she had the same face as the ghost in the original picture. What do you guys think? I'm so scared I might change my shirt back. Next up at number 5, we have this picture taken in 1963 by Reverend K.F. Lord. He noticed the ghostly figure on the right of this picture after having it developed. In the years since then, there's been a lot of speculation about what exactly that thing is. Those who believe that it's a ghost say it's of a monk or other holy figure standing watch forever over the altar. Moving on to number 4 now, we have this creepy picture from 1959. It was taken by Mabel Chinner, who had just visited her mother's grave. As she walked back to the car, she took this picture of her husband waiting in the front of the car, but also of an unknown figure sitting in the back. The couple said it was the ghost of her dead mother. I'd run if I saw that. Okay,
Number 10, Disney led to 50 children falling ill with salmonella. Disney's 2010 movie The Princess and the Frog shows Princess Tiana kissing a frog, who is actually a prince under a curse. Now of course kids love a bit of Disney and will do anything to be like their favourite Disney princesses or heroes. Unfortunately, this meant that many young children copied Tiana's actions, kissing actual frogs hoping to find a prince. This directly led to over 50 children contracting salmonella, a type of bacteria poisoning. Luckily none of the cases were fatal, but it did teach these kids an important lesson. Never go around kissing frogs hoping they'll turn into princes. Like, most of the time, it just doesn't work. Don't snog a frog, you will regret it. Things are getting sexy here at number 9. Sex is spelled out in the sky in The Lion King and can be seen on the poster for Tangled. So I guess a few of you have already heard of sex in the sky in The Lion King, but it is impossible not to mention. With Disney, there is often sex in the air, like actually literally. As Simba contemplates his dead father, the word sex can clearly be seen in the stars. Now some say it says SFX, a nod to the special effects team. However, if this is true, why is the word once again clearly visible in the 2010 movie poster for Tangled? Feminism rejoice at number 8. Princess Aurora, aka Sleeping Beauty, is only on screen for 18 minutes in her whole film. That's right, she may have the title role, but Sleeping Beauty is in the film for just 18 minutes with only 18 lines.
Yo, deadass, they got their own area code, their own police force and everything.
1 hour and 16 minutes long. I felt like she fell asleep.
That's what I'm saying, bro. These white niggas playing a different type of game, beloved. This shit about generational wealth.
4 million balloons to lift up Carl's house in Up. Everybody loved Up, right? Personally, it had me in tears within the first 10 minutes and I was inconsolable for days. The most iconic moment in Up is when Carl ties helium balloons to his house in order to turn it into an airship-like vessel. Cool, right? Maybe, but Carl would have needed to be in it for the long game, as it would have taken 9.4 million helium balloons to lift up that house. Meaning, as an old guy, he probably would have died in the time that it took him to do it. That's right, in at number 6, guys with beards were not allowed into Disneyland. And this is a rule issued by Walt Disney himself. You know Walt Disney, the guy with the facial hair? Weird. In at number 5, Disney World is actually the same size as San Francisco.
See, look, same size as San Francisco, owned by one man, which technically means that this nigga owns the state.
Twice the size of Manhattan and around the same size as San Fran. This is absolutely insane. Now, on top of that, the hotels are so big on site, it would take 68 years to sleep in every room. Wowza. Things are getting even more shocking and even kind of morbid here at number 4. When the original Pirates of the Caribbean ride opened at Disneyland, it was decorated with real human skeletons. Disney, the family-friendly magical kingdom beloved by children, used real human skeletons to decorate the Pirates of the Caribbean when it first opened in 1967. Apparently this was on the order of Walt Disney himself. He didn't like the way fake skeletons
And I'm not gonna hold you. That's why I don't be trying to be
ramping
doing all
up
that
the
extra,
crazy
you know,
shock
super
factor.
fun
In at
shit
number
with the kids, you know, like, cause I know
Finding
that
Nemo
the
was
agenda
real,
that these
he would have
motherfuckers
turned
have
into a
behind
woman
their
and had
sleeves,
sex
you
with his
feel me?
dad.
Like,
I mean,
they don't want your
maybe
kids
that
to have
was
fun.
coming
They
in the
want to have
sequel.
fun with your
If the
kids.
story
And I
had
be
played
not
out in
fuck
real
that.
life in the real ocean,
Fuck
the most
that.
likely response from the clownfish to the death of an offspring's mother would be for one of the males to develop female sex organs and mate with the remaining male. Not so child-friendly now. Now the shock just absolutely starts to pour at number 2 when I reveal that 3.4 million copies of The Rescuers had to be recalled because real boobs were seen in a frame. The videos released on VHS had to be recalled when it was revealed there was a photo of a nude lady sneaked into the background of 2 frames. The topless model can be spotted as Bernard and Bianca fly through the city. You can really actually see her in the window in the background. This kind of isn't okay for kids. We've had Disney including salmonella, we've had unrepresented heroines, we've had real human skeletons, we've had creepy fish sex, we've had sex in the sky, we've had boobs. But things are even crazier at number 1. So number 1 in our shocking facts about Disney is there are just so many penises everywhere. Disney reveals its truly perverted side as penis imagery can be spotted in way too many films.
Yo,
Bugs Bunny has been spotted with a boner. Some have spotted what looks like Mickey Mouse hugging a big penis.
We could always,
and some
you know,
have
try to
even
refer
claimed
back to
there
that
are
and think
blatant
about what would have
shafts
happened
in
if that shit
Ariel's
didn't
castle in
happen.
The Little
But at
Mermaid.
the same time,
Now,
it
for
doesn't
me,
matter.
the most
It
shocking
did.
penis moment
We
in a
hear
Disney
and we see the
film
power that
is
we
in
have
Ariel's
now
Little
when we still
Mermaid.
allow this
It's when
bullshit to
Eric is
overcome
about
us.
to marry
So it's like,
Ursula,
it's
and
the point in time when we
priest
gotta
gets a
realize
little
that
bit too
that like,
excited, if you know what I mean.
it ain't
Take a
them,
look
it's
at this
us.
footage.
I
Now,
mean,
some
shit,
people
it's the
have said
simple
that this isn't
mindset.
me, but for
Like
me,
how many
I don't think
individuals
that
know
men
about
have
what
3
happened? How many
knees, do
individuals
they?
act
In at
upon it?
number
You get what
9,
I'm saying?
Tangled
Like,
and Pirates of the Caribbean are 2 of the
everybody
most expensive movies
just like
ever
pick and
made.
choose which battles
Disney
they
likes to
tend to want to
splash
fight.
that cash.
You get what I'm saying?
So
Like,
Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides cost $378.5 million
and yet they got
to
modern
make,
days
making it the
plantations
most
right now where they got
expensive
men
movie ever made.
that ain't
Now,
never
this was
coming home. You get
closely
what I'm
followed
saying?
by Pirates
So
of
it's
the
like
Caribbean at World's
that
End,
shit
cost
just a ring around the rosy,
$300
bro.
million. Now the 5th most expensive
just a ring
movie
around
ever
the
made
rosy, you know
was
what I mean? Like, that's
Tangled,
just-
costing
at the end of the day,
$260
like, that shit come
million,
back to
making
realize
this the
themselves.
most expensive
Niggas really
animated
standing
film
up for what the
ever.
fuck
I
they
guess it
need.
was worth it. People love these films. In at number 8 of our shocking facts about Disney, Disney was going to release a
Getting back
promotional
in tune with
wine
the
alongside
ancestors,
the
getting
movie
back in tune with who
Ratatouille.
we
What
really
goes
are.
well with kids?
Now
Alcohol.
who a
right?
nigga wanna
So
be, you
alongside
feel
the
me?
movie Ratatouille, Disney Pixar were planning to promote the cartoon on bottles of 2004 vintage white Burgundy. Now Disney said it cancelled the promotion after being lobbied by California winemakers upset that they were using French wine and also by those against underage drinking, which I think is kind of understandable. This would have been a
So
very
we gonna be
weird
the next
marketing
Black
tool
Wall
indeed.
Street.
A weird one for you at number 7, Walt Disney's last words were Kurt Russell. So on Walt Disney's deathbed, he wrote Kurt Russell on a piece of paper and then handed it to a person next to him. What does this mean? We don't know. So at the time, Russell was a child actor who had just signed a contract with Disney. Russell then went on to be a well-known Hollywood actor. What this means, we literally don't know. Kurt Russell himself is absolutely baffled. At number 6, Frozen was the first Disney movie directed by a female. Now Jennifer Lee was offered the role of co-director in 2011 after she co-wrote the screenplay. So all of the 52 animated feature films released by Disney in the 74 years before Frozen were all directed by males. Interestingly enough, when Walt Disney was alive, he actually refused to offer creative roles to females. He said that they didn't belong in the creative studios. Really sad at number 5, following the movie Finding Nemo, many kids flushed their pet fish down the toilet. So I absolutely love the movie Finding Nemo, but there was a lasting impression left on children, and that was death of their fish. One of the lines in the film is all drains lead to the ocean. However, I'm guessing this isn't, you know, a direct route. Yikes. The issue became so bad that the LA Times had to publish an article warning children not to do it. Even Ellen DeGeneres, who voiced Dory, warned children against this. She said it was not okay. Please don't flush your fish down the loo. In at number 4, there are dead people in Disneyland. Aside from the real bones used in the initial Pirates of the Caribbean ride in California, there are an abundance of human remains across the Disneyland. Why is this? Because people like to spread the ashes of their loved ones there. Many people want the Magic Kingdom to be their final resting place. One mother even spread the ashes of her young son on the Haunted Mansion ride. Following that, there were reports about a little boy ghost dancing in the ballroom scene. Weird. In at number 3, over 20 people have died in Disney parks, with hundreds being injured. Now, considering the parks opened in 1955, I guess this isn't that shocking. That said, some of the ways in which people died, well, they kind of were. In 2003, Big Thunder Mountain in California derailed and killed a 22-year-old man. 10 others were also injured. In 1984, a 48-year-old woman was thrown from the Matterhorn ride and killed by another bobsleigh. In 2004, a boy died after falling from the Roger Rabbit cartoon spin. And in the 80s, one person was shot and another stabbed in the parks. In at number 2 of our shocking facts about Disney Part 2, many Disney movies are based on R-rated stories, aka not safe for kids. For example, Jungle Book is based on a story where a boy and his animal friends team up to kill people. In the Brothers Grimm original story of Snow White and the prince go red wedding on the evil queen, inviting her to celebrate their special day, then making her dance in a pair of red-hot shoes till she dies. The Lion King is roughly based on Shakespeare's Hamlet, only Simba goes on to achieve success and happiness, whereas Hamlet, not so much. It's a literal bloodbath where almost everybody dies.
Scar's the victim of that story, B. They did my son wrong.
When Ariel grows legs, it was excruciating for her to use them, and in the end, in order to save her prince, she ends up committing suicide. Not quite the tale that Disney told us. In at number 10, Ursula is Triton's sister. Say what? Yep, that's right, Ursula the Sea Witch and Triton the Sea God. In the 2006 Platinum Edition DVD release of Ariel the Little Mermaid, deleted scenes revealed that Ursula is Triton's sister, making her Ariel's evil aunt. I mean, I'm shocked. This maybe would explain some of the jealousy and the source of Ursula's power. However, I for one need more context. Unfortunately, this concept was not used in the final film, although it is often discussed in spin-off material and is heavily referenced in the Broadway musical production of The Little Mermaid. In at number 9, a Disneyland ride ends in hell. Like actual hell. So Mr. Toad's Wild Ride is an original ride at Disneyland, California, having opened alongside the park in 1955. Now, part of the ride features Mr. Toad driving into oncoming traffic, then going straight to hell. The devil's there, just hanging out, doing his thing, terrifying the children. Excellent. In at number 8, Disney has been accused of plagiarism. So where does Disney get their ideas for their epic tales? So many sources are developed and cited, such as Hans Christian Andersen's work on The Little Mermaid. So one of the first times Disney was called out for plagiarism was for copying the story of the Lion King from a Japanese movie called Kimba the White Lion. Now, during which many aesthetics and plot parallels can be drawn, including the lead character's name Kimba, which, you know, sounds a lot like Simba the Lion King. Again, Disney was accused following the release of Monsters, Inc. for taking story elements from the 1989 movie Little Monster, in which monsters work by scaring kids in their beds. Finally, once again, following Toy Story, many people said this was a lot like the 1983 movie A Christmas Toy, during which toys come to life when children aren't around. In at number 7, Pumbaa is the first Disney character to fart. So a problem-free philosophy isn't so problem-free when you have to worry about farting. Pumbaa from the 1994 movie The Lion King was the first ever Disney character to fart. So flatulence was ignored for like many years. I understand though, parking isn't exactly the stuff of fairy tales. In at number 6, Tom Sawyer Island was once seized by hippies. Now, in order to protest the strict Disney dress code in 1970, 750 hippies staged a smoke-in on Tom Sawyer Island, and they even raised the Viet Cong flag. Basically, this is because Disney would reject people from entering the park if they had long hippie-like hair. So following the invasion, Disney was not happy and responded by shutting the park and calling the police. In at number 5, Disney says ugly people are nasty people. What do you have to do to be a beautiful Disney princess? Well, be good, of course. What if genetics and unfortunate accidents don't work in your favor? Well, you must be some kind of witch or hateful beast. Sorry. Time and time again in Disney, we see beauty as kindness. Now, this is totally fair, but ugly is often considered to be evil. For example, in Snow White, the wicked queen puts on an ugly peasant disguise as she goes about her evil biddings. The ugly sisters are Cinderella's enemies, and the beast is a literal horned creature until Belle shows him goodness. Then the only way for him to turn good and to love her is to become handsome again, because obviously. Also, Ursula, well, she must have skipped out on the good genes of Triton and Ariel and her sisters. Should have been nicer, I guess. In the modern times, I would say things have changed a little bit, but as it stood in the mid-1900s up until the 90s, this seemed to be the direction that the character profiling was going. In at number 4, Snow White was paid peanuts. The iconic voice for Snow White was delivered by Adriana Caselotti, who had a brief career as a chorus girl for MGM Studios until Disney hired her to be the voice of Snow White. Now, she was paid just $970 for the job, equivalent to around $15,000 today. So whilst $15,000 may seem like a lot of money for a voice job, it really wasn't, especially as Disney demanded that she never work again. He said, "I'm sorry, but that voice can't be used anywhere. I don't want to spoil the illusion of Snow White." So the maker of her career was also the nail in its coffin, and when she did work, she had to remain uncredited. In at number 3, Disney park workers have been linked to sex crimes. So in less than 10 years, 35 Disney employees have been arrested on child sex charges, and this is just in and around Florida. Now, 32 of those cases have resulted in convictions. One such accused worker was a character actor at Disney World, Florida, who was accused of sending nudes to what he thought was a 13-year-old boy. Unfortunately, as the Polk County Sheriff pointed out in 2012, where you find children, you will find sexual predators. Disney has responded by saying it does its utmost to put extensive measures in place to protect children and to stop predators being employed. In at number 2, there are cancer warnings in Disneyland, California. Okay, so I actually recently went to Disneyland, California, and I can confirm that there are a scary number of signs around that warn visitors of a risk of birth defects and cancer. Now, the sign reads, "Warning, the Disneyland Resort contains chemicals known to the state of California to cause cancer and birth defects or other reproductive harm." So basically, an investigation found out that there were very high levels of lead in common attractions such as the Sword in the Stone, Minnie's House, and Cinderella's Castle. Scary. Okay, guys, so we have reached that all-important moment in our most amazing top 10 shocking facts about Disney Park 3.
What, on the Street Fighter shit?
I'm giving it to you. In at number 1, some waters in Disney World are filled with alligators. Now, this one is actually very sad and very recent. Disney World, Florida was recently at the center of a tragedy when a 2-year-old boy from Nebraska was staying at the Grand Floridian Resort and Spa Hotel at Disney World. He was playing near the Seven Seas Lagoon and he was taken by an alligator. So despite there being no alligator warnings at the lagoon, the boy was dragged away and drowned by a gator. So in the search for the boy, 6 alligators were caught and killed before the one which killed 2-year-old Lane Graves was found. It was later admitted that the alligator population was not being monitored and that they had no idea how many gators were living in the waters surrounding the parks. It's really, really sad. Okay, coming in at number 10 of our shocking facts about Disney Part 4, poo. Yes, poo. Not Winnie the, just poo, poo.
Let me tell you why the law of attraction does not work for most people. Now, to manifest anything, you must ask then receive, right?
I mean, it's okay
oh, you
to
mean
say.
the Disney
Sometimes
niggas,
it's fun
yeah.
to say
Niggas
poo.
weird,
Have
bro.
you ever walked in Liberty Square in Disneyland and wondered what the brownish path is all about? Now, apparently it's meant to represent raw sewage flowing through the streets of colonial America. That's the era that Liberty Square represents. Gross! Coming in at number 9, Toy Story 2 was accidentally deleted. Oh no, that would have been one massive balls up. Can you imagine if you were responsible? While Disney Pixar were working on Toy Story 2, an employee ran a Unix command that accidentally deleted all of the work done on the film. Uh-oh. They thought that they were totally screwed until it was discovered that a pregnant animator who was just starting her maternity leave actually had a copy of the data on her home computer. She had this to allow her to work from from home once her baby was born, and she literally saved the day. Coming in at number 8, gay Disney characters have caused uproar. Disney now has some openly gay characters.
Yeah, what kind of weird shit is that? Why the bot trying to protect the pedo, nigga? That shit got me talking about the fire bot, nigga. That bot fired, nigga.
To some people, boycotts were organized. Boycotters included a movie theater in Alabama, a group of evangelicals, and some MPs in Russia. Russia reportedly gave the movie a 16+ rating to discourage children from being exposed to the gay character. With that in mind, Russia really won't like what is coming in at number 7. There is a petition online to give Disney's Elsa a girlfriend. Frozen 2 is coming. It has been confirmed. As we know from the first movie, Elsa is a strong, independent woman who really doesn't seem interested in getting married or even meeting a guy. For me, I find this pretty refreshing. However, some have decided that Disney needs to go one step further and confirm Elsa's sexuality by giving her a girlfriend. When the new movie was announced, the hashtag #GiveElsaAGirlfriend started trending. Then came the online petition. Even Elsa voice Idina Menzel is up for it. Coming in at number 6, there's a naughty drawing in Monsters Inc. Okay, this has actually been exposed as totally fake, but I thought I would mention it because it comes up in a lot of similar lists. As Sully comes through Boo's door in Monsters Inc., there's a drawing on the wall. The drawing in the movie is totally harmless, but people have doctored the picture to show a kid's drawing of a man bending over a lady with the caption Uncle Roger and Mummy. Someone has even worked magic on YouTube doctoring the scene, but in reality, in the real footage, it just isn't there. Coming in at number 5, the Pirates of the Caribbean ship sank in Hurricane Sandy. A ship used in the filming of Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest met its demise during 2012's Hurricane Sandy. The ship was used to represent the Edinburgh Trader and saw the likes of Johnny Depp and other cast members during filming. It was also used in the 1990 movie Treasure Island. Unfortunately, its dock on the North Carolina coast was hard hit by Sandy and the ship sunk, killing one crew member. Coming in at number 4, if you're called a treasured guest at a Disney park, you suck. Treasured guest is the terminology used when a member of the public is being unruly, essentially being an absolute pain in the buttocks. Being too much of a treasured guest can land you in Disney jail. And yes, there is a Disney jail. The jail is basically a holding area for people who are about to be thrown out of the park. So guys, you do not want to be a treasured guest. Coming in at number 3, there is full frontal nudity in a Disney film. What? Disney and nudity? Yep, that's right, it is true. In a few frames of Disney's Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Jessica Rabbit is in a car accident and she's thrown from the vehicle onto the ground. As she is thrown, she parts her legs and we see her bare crotch. This is said to be a colouring error, but I don't know, Jessica's always seemed a little bit cheeky to me. If anyone's gonna go commando, I'm thinking it's Jessica Rabbit. Okay, this next shocking fact about Disney blew my mind. Coming in at number 2, Doritos were invented in Disneyland. No! The original product was made at Casa de Fritos at Disneyland in California in the 1960s. The vice president of marketing of Frito-Lay, who did regular deals with one of the providers of food at Disneyland, tasted the crisp, loved it so much that they insisted that they bought the rights. So next time you're tucking into a bag of Doritos, thank Disney. Okay, finally, a truly shocking fact. The Frozen director confirmed that Tarzan is Elsa and Anna's brother. No way! Like, no, surely not. What? Apparently, co-director Chris Buck said that Anna and Elsa's parents were pregnant when they sailed on that ship. As we know, the ship got into trouble, but he said that it actually washed up wrecked on a beach. They had a baby boy, the parents built a treehouse, but then they were eaten by a leopard. It's always unfortunate. Their son was raised by gorillas, which, hold on a minute, isn't that Tarzan's story? Buck said, in my head, Anna and Elsa's brother is Tarzan. I mean, what a bombshell. That is actually even more shocking than when I found out that Ursula is Titan's sister.
Get out
I mean,
the
there's
kitchen.
so much intertwining.
There are endless conversations about opportunities in the crypto space right now. A daunting aspect that nobody wants to talk about? Taxes. When dealing with thousands of transactions and little government guidance, calculating crypto taxes can be very unsettling. Zen Ledger makes crypto and NFT tax
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have lobotomies. Did you know that it used to be common practice for people to just get a part of their brain cut out? Okay, well maybe not common, but it wasn't as uncommon as you would hope. Lobotomies used to be considered an excellent and efficient cure for things such as mental health problems, which thankfully is a practice that has not survived for a very good reason. Of course, in modern medicine they do still exist, but only when actually necessary, and there is of course a lot more knowledge about the dangers and effects. One well-known person to have undergone one of these procedures was Rosemary Kennedy, who was John F. Kennedy's sister. She was experiencing seizures as well as mood swings, and while the seizures certainly were something that needed to be looked after for her health, I'm not sure if the mood swings necessarily needed some kind of medical intervention. Anyways, to cure her, they had a lobotomy performed on her. This procedure left her with the mental capacity of a 2-year-old, and she could no longer speak or walk properly. After this, she spent most of the rest of her life hidden away, and it was thought that her family did this because they were ashamed of her, which is both horrible and so sad. In our number 9 spot today, we have the English Civil War. This might be something that is taught more often in English schools, but admittedly, it's something I didn't even hear mentioned throughout my time in school. This was actually a series of civil wars that took place between 1642 and 1651, and while it is often referred to as one event, it can be divided into 3 separate wars. These wars were mostly in relation to the manner of England's governance as well as pertaining to religious freedoms. The first war was from 1642 to 1646, and the second was from 1648 to 1649. Both the first and second wars saw supporters of King Charles I battling against supporters of the Long Parliament. The third war took place from 1649 until 1651, and this one saw the supporters of King Charles II fighting against the supporters of the Rump Parliament. In the end, these wars saw the execution of King Charles I, the exile of his son King Charles II, and the replacement of the English monarchy with the Commonwealth of England. There's so much more information about what went on and who was fighting in these wars, but I unfortunately don't have time to cover all of it in the short amount of time we have.
Yeah, I was thinking about that shit too. I was gonna do a couple of them, you feel me?
Scotland and Ireland,
but I just wanted to get all my ducks in a row first.
3 kingdoms should be governed. In our number 8 spot today, we have William the Conqueror. This one is a bit more well known than some of the others on this list today, but I want to specifically talk about one thing in reference to this that is much less well known. In 1807, William the Conqueror decided to take on an all-alcohol diet. This is because he was suffering from extreme obesity and was struggling because of that fact. Because of this, he told his staff that he would only drink wine until his weight went down, but he ended up passing away less than a year later, and most of us are told that this was obviously because of the wine-only diet, but that's not actually true. In an astonishing turn of events, this wine-only diet actually worked. Shortly after beginning his diet, he was able to ride his horse again, which was one of the main reasons he started the diet in the first place, as he was previously too heavy for the horse to carry. He actually died after falling from his horse during an expedition, which was completely unrelated to either his weight or his diet. It's entirely possible that had he not gone on this diet, he would have never ridden his horse and maybe would have lived longer. Truthfully, who knows, but I suppose in a very roundabout way, he did still kind of die from this wine-only diet. In our number 7 spot today, we have the World War II dogs. A lot of us have learned quite a bit about World War II as it affected everyone at the time and was obviously a huge deal. We all have slightly different perspectives on it depending where you grew up and went to school, but it's something that is still widely talked about today. There is so much to cover on this topic, so of course some of it ends up getting left out of the history textbooks, but that doesn't mean the knowledge doesn't survive in some capacity. For today's list, I want to talk about a technique that was used in Russia during World War II that ended up completely backfiring. In Russia, they had trained dogs with bombs strapped onto their backs to run under tanks. I'd like to think that this technique also saw the dog being able to leave the bomb there so that they could escape, but that is most—
How's the chicken?
Oh, the prawns are delicious.
Oh, I have a shellfish allergy.
1 prawn, very good.
Did I say chicken wrong?
Tired of people not listening to what you want? Yeah. The more we understand you, the
most likely wishful thinking, but that isn't even what I wanted to talk about today. While this is, I suppose, a good tactic for fighting a war, there was one grave oversight during this training. All the dogs were of course trained using Russian tanks, since that's where and who they were being trained by. So when it came time for the real deal, These dogs couldn't differentiate between a Russian tank or an enemy tank, which then saw the dogs running under what they knew, which were the Russian tanks. Certainly not the outcome that they were expecting. In our number 6 spot today, we have Mary Shelley. We all know Mary Shelley as the author of Frankenstein, but there's one super creepy and kind of sad thing about her that is much less well known. Mary's husband was a man named Percy, and when he was 29 years old, he was sailing with 2 other men, and on July 8th, 1822, they got caught up in a storm and ended up drowning. The bodies of the men were found 10 days later, and they were only able to be identified based on their clothing. This, of course, is extremely tragic and sad, and of course it would have been so awful for Mary to have to lose her husband at all, let alone in this way. Percy ended up being cremated, and for some reason his heart was the only part of his body that refused to burn, which I guess now physicians suggest was due to calcification from an earlier bout with tuberculosis. While this in itself was pretty freaky, at first Percy's friend Lee Hunter ended up keeping his heart, but later it was turned over to Mary. Instead of disposing of the heart or doing anything normal with it, Mary ended up keeping the heart, and she carried it with her for years. No one knew about this odd little keepsake until a year after her death, when it was found in the drawer of her desk, wrapped up in the pages of one of his last poems. What a simultaneously heartbreakingly beautiful, but also ultra creepy story. The heart ended up being buried in the family vault with Percy and Mary's son after he passed away in 1889. In our number 5 spot today, we have strange medicine. It's not necessarily uncommon for us to hear about strange things that people in the past used to do, but sometimes those strange things are also disgusting. It was extremely common in the past for people to use human remains as a form of medicine. You'd think at some point they'd realize that these remains truly were doing more harm than good. Well, I guess we did, but it did go on for much longer than it should have. The cannibalistic treatments would consist of things such as blood, ground up human skull, and even human fat. Tomb raiders would even steal remains in order for them to be sold to the wealthy, which is incredibly dark, and apparently mummy remains were the ideal remains for these sorts of things, which led to a shortage of mummies. I never thought I'd be in a position where I'd be talking about a shortage of mummies, but truly anything can happen over here at Most Amazing Top 10. I guess who am I to judge these past decisions, but all I can say is that I am very glad this is one we have moved on from. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Chilean Civil War. Just to throw another war into the mix today, let's talk about the Chilean Civil War of 1891. The short of it on this war is that the president at the time, Jose Manuel Balmaceda, tried to give himself a lot more power than he probably should have had. The Congress weren't exactly thrilled about that, so they and the Chilean Navy rebelled against the president and the army. The Navy made the smart move by going north and seizing the nitrate mines, which were very economically important. From there, they sailed south. Like any war, there of course was a lot that went on, but ultimately the Navy and Congress were successful
what they
and
used to do is
victorious.
like
This war was
that's
actually
why
the first
they
war where
put it
modern torpedoes
like it was
were
a joke
used
inside
and
how
were
high.
actually successful,
Like
although
niggas
they
just
took
gonna
all
roll
of
up
the
and smoke
torpedoes
the
they had in just one
the
attack.
dead
Part of the
nigga
reason the Navy was so
and then get his
successful in
smarts
this
and
war
pass the
because
shit.
not only were
But
they
no,
able
not
to
the homie when he
dominate
go to
on
plant.
land, but also
Remember when
sea.
they dug
This
son
really
up, the
led other
president?
countries to realize how
John
vital
Quincy
it
Adams
was for
went
them
and
to
smoked
have
that
modern
nigga.
ships and naval defenses. It
Niggas
also made
wild.
other countries realize how
They used to do
important it
that.
was for them to have modern
And like
weapons.
especially
This
the
war may be
grades
lesser
of like the
known
powerful
and less
pharaohs and
discussed,
shit.
but it certainly was an eye-opener for a lot of other countries. In our
But
number
once
3
again,
spot
that
today,
just
we
come
have
from
King
misdirection.
Gojian of UA.
Like
King
it's like
Gojian of UA
what you
had
trying to
his
do
reign
is right,
from
but what you doing is wrong. You get what I'm
496
saying?
BC until
Like it's like you never had the full
465
source,
BC. His reign took
but
place
you
during
just
what
know
was
that
arguably
all right,
the
boom,
last
I know it's
major
something to
conflict
this,
of the
you know,
spring and autumn
something like
period,
this.
and he was able to lead his state to victory.
But like think about it,
certainly
right?
wasn't an easy road, or
If a
without
lot
some
of like
very
say we
creepy
go on the
happenings.
mission,
The
right?
major conflict he
They
led
don't know
his
what
state
we on the
through
mission
was the
for.
war between Wu
And we
and
fell,
Yue,
we died,
which
whatever
started
happened,
when
so
a
we
Yue
don't even get to
princess
tell our
was
story.
married to a prince
Now
of Wu,
years pass
left her
by,
husband, and
whoever
fled
come
back
and find
to
us
Yue.
is gonna
I
tell
mean,
our
this, of
story how
course,
it's gonna
wasn't the
benefit them the
only
most.
thing that caused
You
the
feel me?
war,
So it's
but it
like
certainly
the
sparked
truth
the
is never
fire.
gonna rise
King
at that
Gojian
point
was
because
an
all
extremely
parties is
humble
gone.
king, as he
You get what I'm
wouldn't
saying? Like
relish in
there
the
is no
riches he
first
had,
count.
as most
Like
royals
like
would.
like there's
Instead,
no
he ate
first
the
hand
same
account
food as
witnesses.
peasants and often would leave
feel me?
himself hungry in order to remember that he was
There's
in
no
a
such thing
position
as
to
truth at
serve
that
his
point.
state. Okay, so you might be sitting there wondering when I'm going to get to the scary historical event that you came to this video for, so here it is. As I mentioned before, he was able to lead his state to victory, but of course a war involves a lot of sacrifice and some pretty horrific happenings. King Gojian's army was very well known for their ability to scare their enemies before battle began, and this is because their front line consisted of criminals who had been sentenced to death. In this time, there wasn't lethal injection or the electric chair, so naturally it was a lot more of a vicious process.
That I thought, but you know how I go. Whoever win the war gets to write his story.
Enemy army. Yep. I think this is probably the definition of a scary historical event. I can't even imagine witnessing something like that and then having to proceed with a battle against the army that has people doing that sort of thing. King Gojian was certainly not a leader who was wasting time messing around. In our number 2 spot today, we have Topsy the elephant. Topsy was a female Asian elephant who was born in Southeast Asia around 1875. She was secretly brought into the United States shortly after and was unfortunately added to a circus who advertised her as the first elephant born in the US, despite that obviously not being true. During her 25 years with this circus, she gained a reputation as a bad elephant, and after she ended up killing a guest at the circus, she was sold to Coney Island's Sea Lion Park in 1902. The Sea Lion Park was eventually sold and renamed to Luna Park, and during Topsy's time here, she was involved in quite a few highly publicized incidents, which could be attributed to her drunken handler, the publicity-hungry owners of the circus, as well as the fact that this is all a perfect example of why animals that belong in the wild should be in the wild. In the end, all of the horrible people who had a hand in Topsy being in this circus decided that since she was such a problem, they would execute her publicly. They were going to hang her, but because people thought that that was inhumane, they decided to take a different route. For the record, I just want to say that the execution of Topsy was inhumane no matter what method they chose, because Topsy didn't deserve to be in this kind of an environment. On January 4th of 1903, Topsy was fed carrots that were laced with potassium
from the movie
cyanide, and she was
Dumbo,
also electrocuted and
that
strangled.
was
To make this
about a
horrific
real
day even worse,
fucking
the event
elephant
was both
that they was really doing
spectated
shit to.
and
Like
Edison
it was
Manufacturing
Gumbo
Movie Company was
and
there to
Jumbo.
film the
There was
whole
two of them.
thing. Many people believe Thomas Edison
niggas
was
ain't shit.
actually there himself, but that is something that is up for debate. This whole situation is absolutely heartbreaking, and Topsy deserved a lot better than everything she had to go through. In our number 1 spot today, we have the Red Summer. The Red Summer is something I didn't even hear mentioned in school, which is honestly absolutely shocking. I'm hoping this is something that is more commonly taught than I think it is, because it certainly is very important. The Red Summer is the term used to refer to the period from the late winter through to the early autumn of 1919, in which white supremacist terrorism and racial riots took place in more than 36 cities across America. Some of the more well-known race riots that took place during the Red Summer were the Chicago and Washington, D.C. riots, and the Red Summer also saw the Elaine massacre that took place in Elaine, Arkansas, which saw the deaths of between 100 to 240 Black Americans. These anti-Black riots are said to have developed from a multitude of post-World War I tensions, such as the economic slump and the competition in job and housing markets. In 1919, it certainly wasn't uncommon for there to be race riots and a multitude of white-on-black violence, but the Red Summer really marked some of the first race riots in which Black...
We're a community of over 22,000 doctors. We've practiced at all top 20 U.S. hospitals.
People in number stood up to the white supremacy, resisted, and fought back. During the Red Summer, a civil rights activist named A. Philip Randolph publicly defended the right of Black people to self-defense. It is said that between January 1st and September 14th of 1919, white mobs lynched at least 43 Black Americans, but despite this, the states refused to interfere or prosecute these mobs. Considering how many race riots went on during this summer, we truly could dedicate an entire video to the Red Summer. It is insane to think about how recent 1919 really was, and while we certainly have come a long way, there is always more work to be done, and part of the work involves us learning about these horrible histories and what happened in our past.
Number 10, Birkin Bronze Radium Chocolate. Yum, hope we're eating right off the bat for this one. These delights were sold between 1931 to 1936, and these chocolates were praised for the effect that it had on its consumers. See, instead of getting a tummy ache after downing some Birkin Bronze chocolate, you would feel rejuvenated, you would feel fresh. See, this chocolate was made in real radium water, so yeah, you're gonna feel something. guaranteed. Looking back now at the details I just provided you, yeah, you can only imagine the horror stories that slowly began to spread over these new tasty treats. My New Year's resolution personally is no more chocolate, and this point right here is helping me out, so cool, no thanks. Next, number 9, the ducking stools. Oh, this one we thought we had something, really. There's the crane, then there's the ducking stool. Both, it was close. This was a punishment used in the 16th and 17th century England, and it was usually a punishment that was reserved for women because they were witches, right? Remember? Yeah. So dumb. This punishment was given to a woman for doing what was considered unwomanly things, whatever that was supposed to mean back then, you can only imagine. Apparently, this included things like having an argument with their husband, or fighting with the neighbors, or gossiping and or backstabbing. Ugh, God forbid. Classic Middle Ages. Hey, Margaret was gossiping around town, so let's all take the day off work and then go dunk her in the river with this new stool I created. Awesome. Basically, this punishment would see a woman being tied up to a stool or a chair and then dipped into a lake or stream over and over. It was actually, like, scientifically, it was miraculous, but it was a horrible purpose. This was actually a punishment method that didn't usually end up in death, but I mean, it was pretty bad still, right? Number 8, spray on hair. All right, shout out to all my bald kings out there. Here we go. If you're watching this, hit that thumbs up. The babes are back. Yeah, that's what this real advertisement says about spray on hair. The babes are back. There we go. We can see them coming in just like that. They went somewhere and then babes returned because of the hair. Gotcha. Look, I'm 28 years old. I know a lot of guys have bad luck hair-wise at this age, and I'm not talking smack, okay? But spray on hair, it's not the solution, okay? Just buzz it, just bick it, just commit, all right? This early 1990s product did not work. It didn't sweep the nation. Men did not regain their youth for $39 plus shipping. No, it didn't happen. It just looked like spray painted cobwebs on your head. It looked like Halloween spooky cobwebs on top of your stupid head. The advertisement legitimately says the babes are back, which implies that said babes noticed his bald spot, decided as a group, had a meeting, you know, made it official that they had to leave, right? And then women decided that they loved bald guys. Then they came back because they saw the spray. No. I don't buy that. Women love bald guys, okay? Vin Diesel, The Rock, Patrick Stewart, are you kidding me? Professor X? Number 7, daylight motion pictures. I saw Avatar 2 last night, and I swear, hand to God, the lights stayed on for the first 5 minutes of the film. It was insane. It was chaos. People were yelling. Ushers were throwing their visors at the lights, trying to shut them off. It was chaos on Pandora, to say the least. You need complete darkness for a film, okay? Me personally, that's my preference. I can't watch anything in the light. But also for the projector's sake, right? We need to see the movie. We have to be able to actually see it. We have 46 lights around me, and you can see me. But back in the 1910s, daylight motion pictures were a thing for a hot minute, and it's as bad as it sounds. This trend moved across the country after a bill was passed, so theaters went from, you know, dark and enjoyable to bright enough so that you can see who's next to you. That was the whole point. See, it was a safety hazard for theaters to not have lights on because, you know, people around, not sure what's going on. If they bring that back today, I'm gonna be upset. I mean, the general public's starting to get all crazy again, so we'll see. Number 6, ab belts. All right, shout out to all my jacked kings out there with your 9-packs. Here we go. The perfect product for guys who want an 8-pack without doing any other work. Here we go. Welcome to the ab belt. The ab belt sounds too good to be true, and well, that's because it was. Ab belts in the 90s were as hot as Tom Hanks was in the 90s. It was insane. Everybody loved this, right? I think we may have had one growing up. Now that I think about it, I was like, what is this thing? Or it could have been something I don't even want to know. Never mind. Science can't confirm that wearing an ab belt has zero benefit. No, it just shakes your, you just gotta go to the washroom after. That's it. If your company is thinking about making false claims, you should expect real lawsuits to follow. Yeah, that's why they all disappeared. Can't just say that and then nothing happens. No. Number 5, the walking sleeping bag. There we go. My brother sleepwalks. He's been sleepwalking his whole life. Where was this growing up? This would have caused a lot of more problems, actually, now that I think about it. A sleeping bag, but with footholes and a head hole. But
5 more minutes left and I'm shutting this
no holes for the arms. How fun is that? Yeah, just risking your life, I guess. Just legs
what
and
time
face.
You be
Can't
on
think
this
of a more
shit? Cause
dangerous product, actually. As somebody who's broken his front teeth
Niggas might fuck around and play Street Fighter.
Twice before, I can say with confidence this is the worst product in history. One misstep and you're just watching your doom coming closer to your face. That's it. I mean, I get it. On paper, I get that's a cozy few minutes. Maybe it's funny, make your friends laugh. But what about when you can't find the zipper? Then what? Now you're trying to David Copperfield your way out of an escape bag of death while you're dozy too, while you're like half asleep. No way, no thanks. Number 4, radiated toys. Great for the family. Here we go. There's Monopoly, then there's this one right here. There's the Gilbert U-238 Atomic Energy Lab set. The Gilbert U-238 Atomic Energy Lab toy set sure looks fun upon first glance, I guess, but when the company released this toy kit back in 1950, it was all but games. Gilbert, who was a successful toy maker at the time, he was a businessman, even a magician. It's always cool. It's a triple threat right there. Always cool when you're a magician on the side. He believed that his line of work should be fun, yet informative. Yeah, one of those nerds. He was nicknamed the man who saved Christmas, actually, after he convinced the U.S. Council of National Defense to not ban toy purchases during World War I around the holiday season. So he's done some things. Real business guy. He really wanted to get this one out there. He was eager. This set was around $50, which back in the day was quite a lot. And the price was justified as the set was actually radioactive. Sorry, what? That's right, the Gilbert U-238 Atomic Energy Lab set contained a cloud chamber where you can actually see real alpha particles traveling at a mere 12,000 miles a second. Yeah, imagine asking for a light bright, you open that, you're like, do we have the receipt? Might take this one back. Yeah, it's glowing and now I feel sick, so let's take it back. Number 3, the collar. This one looks really bad at first, but then the true punishment actually comes after the crime. Here we go. The collar. This is this heavy metal ring with spikes. Now, the collar is meant to sit on your neck and it's to prevent you from moving. Like at all. See, these spikes were adjustable, so more often than not, they would be tightened just until they're close to the neck, so that if and only when the victim moved, then it would pierce your skin. You've probably seen this in some way, shape, or form. Maybe it's tucked into the collar, but now it's more than one. I don't know. You couldn't lay down, you couldn't sleep, obviously, and although you could eat, swallowing was tough. Any slight movement, and you're gonna feel a little poke. It's not nice. Whenever I see this, I always think of the Will Smith 1999 classic, Wild Wild West. Some scary neck situations going on in that film, that's for sure. Cinematic masterpiece, that one. So good. Will Smith, man. Guy slaps in the cinema, you know? Number 2, Spanish tickler. Yeah, its name sounds a little fun, dare I say a little...
Amber! That's what I brought. Chase.
No. The Spanish tickler is all but, yeah, it's also referred to as the cat's paw, which is a bit closer to its real purpose here. This Freddy Krueger looking thing was dragged down the victim's skin back in medieval times. Now, it was designed at that angle so that your flesh would be torn off of your bones and muscle easily. Yeah, the Middle Ages gave us an hourglass, and they also gave us this. So, you know, take your pick. To make things even worse, the Spanish tickler would often be attached to a pole, so users could stand far away and just, you know, have at it. What a cheap way to harm somebody or punish someone back then, right? At least get close, you wimp. I included some horrible devices like this on our list, because back then, in the Middle Ages, they thought they were fancy with these devices, right? Some dude's like, yes, my next gadget. He has like an hourglass and stuff, and then he's like, this one will change everything. And it's the Spanish tickler. You're like, guy, we need
hell yeah, I still got 8 points, bro. That's my shit.
And finally,
I just ain't been playing in a while because I deleted it to play Fortnite with my little man.
So intriguing and
but
fun. The mouth
I
pair,
fucking
the choke pair, it's so gross. Hey, I downloaded it again. At your house. Chris, you mind bringing that to work tomorrow? I love my choke pair. Thanks, man. I need that for a staff party. This is one of the worst inventions ever, so I had to finish on it, right? I wish I didn't know about this, but I do, and now you have to as well. Hit that thumbs up for forced knowledge. When you click a video on the worst things from the Middle Ages or Rome, whatever, without getting too graphic here, on the one side, the pear side, that would go into your mouth. Or other places if you're creative, but we'll say the mouth for this one, right? Sure. And then on the other side, there's a screw, where if you turn said screw, that pear side begins to open up. It blooms like a flower almost. I say flower, this thing is not beautiful at all, it's haunting. It's one of those inventions where it avoids the loss of blood. So again, somebody thought they were onto something back in the day. They thought they were creative with this one. So this was a creative, horrible way to get somebody to talk without having them die. Which is insane, but it's also, I admit, it's kind of creative. Also, it's kind of hard to talk when there's a choke pear in your mouth, so someone's got to figure that out. These were also used to just prevent somebody from talking entirely, right? It was, again, creative.
Coming in at number 10, heroin used to be used as a children's cough syrup. German drug company Bayer made a heck of a lot of money selling heroin to parents. Get a load of these babies. Heroin was a prescription drug in the US until 1914.